Chapter 904. Sophie looked helplessly at Qin Chuan's shocked expression. When she first heard about this, her reaction was even more exaggerated than Qin Chuan's. "Don't look at me like that. I'm telling the truth. I'm not lying to you." Sophie sighed and said to Qin Chuan, "Grand Duke Blackchess has always had a deep obsession with Grand Duke Angel. This time, you and Wang Qi are in the same group. Something unexpected will definitely happen. So Grand Duke Angel wants to see you in advance to tell you something so that you can be mentally prepared." Qin Chuan took a deep breath and asked Sophie, "Is it allowed to kill during the competition?" Hearing Qin Chuan's question, Sophie was slightly taken aback and asked, "What do you want to do?" Qin Chuan shook his head and responded, "It's not what I want to do, but I want to know what they can do." After hearing Qin Chuan's explanation, Sophie understood what Qin Chuan meant. She said to Qin Chuan, "Every contestant who enters the top 100 is a genius of the same galaxy and a mainstay in the future. Therefore, there will be referees present during the competition. If there is danger, the referees will stop the competition. However, in this way, the party in danger will be eliminated." Qin Chuan nodded gently and said to Sophie, "In that case, I know what to do." As the two spoke, they arrived at the door of Grand Duke Angel's room. Sophie said to Qin Chuan, "The Grand Duke has instructed that only you are allowed to enter. You can just push the door and go in." Qin Chuan glanced at the door, stepped forward, and was about to knock when the door suddenly opened. Zhou Xian walked out and made way for Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan saw this and nodded gently at Zhou Xian, then stepped in. When Qin Chuan walked into the room and came to the living room, Angel was sitting on the sofa reading a book. It was worth mentioning that Angel was reading a paper book. This kind of book was definitely an antique in this era. It would not be a problem to sell a book for hundreds of thousands. "Sit down." Angel did not raise her head. She pointed casually and motioned for Qin Chuan to sit down. Qin Chuan walked to the sofa and sat down. He poured himself a cup of tea and then asked Angel, "Grand Duke, I wonder why you called me here." "I asked Sophie to tell you some things on the way here." Angel raised her eyes and glanced at Qin Chuan. "This time, you have to win against the Grand Duke of Blackchess's junior, Wang Qi. You have to win, and you have to win cleanly." When Qin Chuan heard this, he chuckled and said to Angel, "Even if the Grand Duke didn't say anything, I would have done the same. My goal is to be in the top 3. No matter what, I will defeat Wang Qi." Angel shook her head and said to Qin Chuan, "You're wrong. You don't know the Grand Duke of Blackchess, nor do you know Wang Qi. Do you think that you can definitely win against Wang Qi just because you're a grade 5 talisman array master? Oh, I almost forgot to congratulate you. Now that you're a grade 5 talisman array master, you're on equal footing with me. You don't have to be so restrained when you see me in the future." Qin Chuan smiled. His attitude toward Angel did not change. He first thanked Angel, then asked curiously, "Grand Duke, do you mean that I might lose to Wang Qi?" "Wang Qi is nothing to worry about. What I'm really worried about is the Grand Duke of Blackchess." Angel pursed her lips. "He's a person who will do anything to achieve his goals. This time, you're up against Wang Qi. In order to attack me, he will definitely spare no effort to help Wang Qi win this match." Qin Chuan was puzzled when he heard that. He asked, how is he going to help Wang Qi? The match was one-on-one. The Grand Duke of Blackchess couldn't possibly replace Wang Qi, right? I don't know exactly how the Grand Duke of Blackchess will operate, but you can rest assured that what I said will definitely happen. So, you have to be careful. Angel looked at Qin Chuan and said in a rather serious tone, "If you die, I won't take care of Lu Zi and the others for you for the rest of your life." Hearing Angel mention Lu Zi, Qin Chuan's expression suddenly became subtle. He took a deep look at Angel and replied, "I understand. I'll be careful." Anders Group, top floor. The Grand Duke of Blackchess, who was dressed in a black robe, sat on a chair. His face was expressionless and his eyes were indifferent. Behind him stood a tall young man. The young man's face was filled with cold arrogance, and his aura was extremely powerful. He was the Grand Duke of Blackchess' most favored junior, Wang Qi. "Grand Duke, how long do we have to wait?" Wang Qi glanced at the time. "We've been waiting here for 20 minutes. The president of the Anders Group is really awe-inspiring. Even Odyssey the Great wouldn't dare to make you wait for so long." Hearing Wang Qi's words, the Grand Duke of Black Chess said indifferently, "Quiet." Wang Qi didn't dare to say anything else, but the expression on his face gradually became a little impatient. He was already in a bad mood because he was going to meet Qin Chuan in the first round of the competition. Now, he had to wait here for the annoying president of the Anders Group. His mood was exploding with irritation. Buzz. The door of the room slowly opened. A tall figure shrouded in a black robe slowly walked into the office and sat down in front of the Grand Duke of Black Chess. He chuckled and said to the Grand Duke of Black Chess, "I'm really sorry for making you wait." Wang Qi looked at the black-robed man sitting in front of him and frowned. "You're the president of the Anders Group? Why are you hiding your true face?" The black-robed man smiled and said to Wang Qi, "Because I'm too ugly. I'll scare people." Wang Qi wanted to say something, but the Grand Duke of Black Chess raised his hand to signal him to be quiet. Wang Qi could only shut up. The Grand Duke of Black Chess looked at the black-robed man and asked, "Have you brought the thing I want?" The black-robed man looked at the Grand Duke of Black Chess and asked with a smile, "We're partners. Of course, I'll bring you the thing you want." As he spoke, the black-robed man took out a small, transparent bottle from his storage ring. The bottle contained a drop of dark purple liquid. He placed the bottle in front of the Grand Duke of Black Chess and said, "This is what you want, the source of spirit." The source of spirit. Wang Qi couldn't help but exclaim. His face was filled with shock. Spirit source was a rare treasure that could increase a person's spirit power in a short period of time. It had always appeared in high-class auctions. Every time it appeared, it would cause a commotion and be sold for a sky-high price. He didn't expect the Grand Duke of Black Chess to ask for the source of spirit from this mysterious president. Moreover, the other party actually took it out. "Yes, the source of spirit." The black-robed man smiled. "With this, your mental strength can increase dramatically in a short period of time. Although it can only last for a short period of time, it's enough for you to defeat all your opponents." Chapter 905. Me? Wang Qi was slightly taken aback. Could it be that the Grand Duke of Black Chess wanted this drop of source of spirit for him? "That's right, it's you." The Grand Duke of Black Chess picked up the bottle containing the source of spirit and glanced at it. Then, he handed it to Wang Qi, who was standing at the side. Seeing the Grand Duke of Black Chess's action, Wang Qi was slightly taken aback. Then, he reached out and took the bottle. "With this source of spirit, I have the confidence to defeat whoever I meet in the finals." Wang Qi looked at the bottle in his hand excitedly, as if he could already see the championship trophy waving at him. "No, this thing can't be used in the finals." The Grand Duke of Black Chess shook his head and said to Wang Qi, "Take it when you face Qin Chuan. You must defeat Qin Chuan." Hearing the Grand Duke of Black Chess's words, Wang Qi was slightly taken aback. Then he responded, "Although Qin Chuan is a level 5 talisman formation master, Qin Chuan's combat power isn't very strong. Using the source of spirit to deal with Qin Chuan is a complete waste of talent. Did I not express myself clearly enough?" The Grand Duke of Black Chess raised his eyes and looked at Wang Qi indifferently. He asked, "Do I need to repeat myself?" Seeing the Grand Duke of Black Chess's anger, Wang Qi's expression changed slightly. He immediately responded, "I understand. I will follow your arrangements." Wang Qi knew very well that his current status was all thanks to the Grand Duke of Black Chess. If the Grand Duke of Black Chess were to hate him one day, his status would definitely plummet. This was definitely not something he wanted to see, and he would definitely not let this happen. Actually, Wang Qi is right. Using the source of spirit to deal with Qin Chuan is indeed a waste of talent. The black-robed man chuckled. "In my opinion, although Qin Chuan has the halo of a level 5 talisman formation master, he may not be a match for Wang Qi. What I want is absolute certainty, not uncertainty." The Grand Duke of Black Chess replied, "This battle must be won. All right, as long as you are happy." The black-robed man spread his hands and said to the Grand Duke of Black Chess, "I've done what I promised you. Don't forget the agreement between us. If you go back on your words, You should know the consequences. Hearing the threat in the black-robed man's words, the Grand Duke of Black Chess snorted and said, I know what to do. I don't need you to remind me. As he spoke, the Grand Duke of Black Chess stood up and walked outside. Wang Qi immediately followed him. The black-robed man remained where he was, watching the Grand Duke of Black Chess and Wang Qi leave. What a boring guy. Is it really worth it to pay such a huge price to win some so-called dignity in front of a woman? Perhaps this was the magic of love. Anyway, I don't really like it. The black-robed man muttered to himself. Suddenly, he stretched out his hand and looked down at the golden beetle in his palm. Andre, do you think I'm right? The anticipated competition of the Talisman Array Master Exchange finally began as scheduled. The battle between Qin Xuan and Wang Qi was scheduled for the 4th day. Qin Xuan didn't have to come and watch the competition during the first 3 days, but Qin Xuan still came because Shu Tao's competition was today. Shu Tao was a young man with a slightly fat figure. He seemed simple and honest, yet he was actually astute, and he was rather striking amongst all the participants. This fellow has the backing of the imperial family. No matter where he goes, he'll become the center of attention. Supposedly, the imperial family intended to marry a princess to him, but it seems to have been refused by him. Zhuo looked at Shu Tao and said to Qin Xuan, don't be fooled by his simple and honest smile. In fact, he's more astute than anyone. You must not be deceived by his appearance. I know. Qin Xuan glanced at Shu Tao before looking at another person, a woman with an ordinary appearance. She was Shu Tao's opponent, number 68, Wu Sui. Wu Sui was the 100th participant to advance into the competition. Supposedly, she was able to enter entirely because she was rich and she'd used sufficient money to buy sufficient votes. Compared to the renowned Shu Tao, Wu Sui was completely unknown, and no one looked favorably upon her. However, it was precisely under such circumstances that Wu Sui had revealed her formidable strength and almost overturned Shu Tao. Rainbow Radiance. Wu Sui shouted in a low voice as the talisman brush in her hand moved about. Instantly, a talisman formation was inscribed, and the talisman formation flickered with a dreamlike sheen, causing Shu Tao's gaze to be slightly dazed. Gale. Wu Sui waved her brush again, inscribing a wind attribute talisman formation. A hurricane swept across the stage, howling as it rushed toward Shu Tao. Shu Tao, who was still in a daze, was suddenly lifted off the ground and fell outside the stage. At this moment, Shu Tao, who was in the middle of the hurricane, suddenly woke up. He shouted in a low voice, and a powerful spiritual force surged out like a tide, instantly destroying the surrounding hurricane and allowing his body to land firmly on the stage. Then, he immediately inscribed a fire attribute battle array. A giant fire dragon flew towards Wu Sui, and the blazing heat instantly melted Wu Sui's defensive talisman formation, causing her to fall into a sea of fire. Whoosh! A figure quickly rushed into the sea of fire, rescuing the wounded Wu Sui. Then, a loud voice announced, the winner of this match is Shu Tao. Wu Sui enters the loser bracket. As the referee announced Shu Tao's victory, the audience around the martial stage burst into loud cheers. However, as Shu Tao stood on the martial stage, his complexion was extremely gloomy. He had nearly been defeated by Wu Sui. To him, this was simply a great humiliation. Even though he had won in the end, he still felt that he had lost all face. In the audience, Qin Xuan looked at the unconscious Wu Sui in the referee's arms and said to Zhuo, this Wu Sui has some strength, but unfortunately, the difference in strength between her and Shu Tao is too great. Although her combination of fists is good, it's difficult to win by surprise. Hearing Qin Xuan's evaluation, Zhuo asked curiously, you think this Wu Sui's strength is good? Qin Xuan nodded and replied, she's only at the advanced stage of the nascent soul realm, and she's only a level 4 advanced talisman formation master. It's already very good for her to be able to accomplish this under the circumstances where she has no background or strength. If she's able to obtain the guidance of a good teacher, then she'll definitely transform into a formidable talisman formation master extremely quickly. Zhuang looked at Qin Chuan with some surprise and asked, "You think so highly of her?" Qin Chuan chuckled and said, "Rather than saying that I think highly of her, it's better to say that I think highly of this type of person. I have a friend who is like this. Although her strength is not strong, she has never given up on the pursuit of strength. She has always been getting stronger and has never stopped." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Zhuang's face revealed a thoughtful look. Chapter 906. Other than the match between Xu Tao and Wu Xiu that was worth watching, Qin Chuan did not find the other matches interesting. Everyone's performance was mediocre. From the perspective of an ordinary spectator, it was naturally very exciting. However, from the perspective of a professional like Qin Chuan, it was not interesting. Therefore, after the first day of the competition ended, Qin Chuan did not come to the venue again. Instead, he quietly studied talisman arrays in his room. In Master Tiannin's notes, there were a total of 2 level 5 talisman arrays. The first one was the Tiannin array, and the second one was called the sound sealing array. The sound sealing array was a talisman array that used sound as a shackle to seal the opponent. It was also an original creation of Master Tiannin. However, it was much more difficult than the Tiannin array, and it was also more effective. This was the second level 5 talisman array that Qin Chuan focused on. If he could learn this talisman array before the competition, his strength would be greatly enhanced. Although the sound sealing array did not have the ability to attack, it could perfectly restrict the opponent. As long as the opponent fell into the sound sealing array, they would lose their freedom. At that time, it would be very easy for Qin Chuan to win the competition. With the beautiful idea of using the sound sealing array to directly kill the opponent, Qin Chuan immersed himself in the study of talisman arrays. However, Qin Chuan clearly underestimated the difficulty of the sound sealing array. On the 4th day of the competition, he still had not learned the sound sealing array. He had to stop studying talisman arrays and prepare for the competition. The competition between Qin Chuan and Wang Qi could be said to be the focus of attention. It was not only because Qin Chuan was the only level 5 talisman array master among the contestants, but also because each of them represented the will of a Grand Duke. Grand Duke Angel, who had been staying in the Rose Hotel since he came to Sinai City, also came to the competition venue on this day. He wanted to watch the competition between Qin Chuan and Wang Qi. Before the competition started, Grand Duke Black came to the door and sat beside Grand Duke Angel. "Angel, how long has it been since we last met?" Black looked at Angel and sighed. "The last time we met was probably 10 years ago." Upon hearing Black's words, Angel smiled slightly and responded, "It's true that we haven't met for some years, but it doesn't matter whether we meet or not." Black looked at Angel with a complicated expression. He whispered, "Maybe in your heart, I'm just an ordinary friend or even a stranger. But in my heart, you're still that little girl from back then. You're innocent and beautiful." "All right, Black, I don't want to hear you talk to me about this." Angel looked at the black chess piece. "If you have something to say, just say it. Don't beat around the bush. I don't like it." Facing Angel's straightforwardness, Black pursed his lips and asked, "Between Qin Chuan and Wang Qi, who do you think is more likely to win?" Upon hearing Black's words, Angel said faintly, "Both Qin Chuan and Wang Qi are rare geniuses in our sane galaxy. I won't be surprised no matter who wins. In my opinion, there's nothing to say about this kind of thing." Black did not expect Angel to answer him like this. He glanced at Angel subtly and asked, "When did you become so indifferent to fame and fortune? Don't you have any desire to win? If you came to see me just to talk about this, then please leave. We're already so old. I don't want any scandals." Angel had lost interest in continuing the conversation with Black. She did not like Black because he was too purposeful no matter what he did. Whether it was in the past or now, Black's character had not changed at all. "Well, I'll say my purpose directly. I want to make a bet with you." Black took a deep look at Angel. "Let's bet on the winner between Qin Chuan and Wang Qi." "I'm not interested," Angel replied. I don't like this kind of activity. Seeing that Angel was not interested, Black could not help but say, as long as you're willing to bet with me, then I'll tell you something big that's about to happen. Angel shook her head again and pointed to the door. Please leave. Seeing that Angel was still indifferent, Black finally could not hold back his irritation and said with some agitation, I can leave now, but when the entire sane galaxy is facing destruction, I hope you won't regret your decision now. Hearing Black's angry roar, Angel's expression changed subtly. She sneered and said, The sane galaxy is facing destruction? Do you think I'll believe that? Seeing that Angel did not believe him at all, Black immediately wanted to tell her everything. However, at this moment, he seemed to think of something in his heart and swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. Phew, so many years have passed. I can remain calm and rational in the face of any situation, but I can't help but lose control of my emotions when facing you. I almost told you that thing just now. Fortunately, I came to my senses in time. Angel, if you want to know that thing, I can tell you, but you have to bet with me. I can swear on my life that I'm not lying to you. Seeing that Black had calmed down, Angel knew that it was impossible for her to trick him into telling her that thing. Although it was a bit alarmist to say that the sane galaxy was facing destruction, based on her understanding of Black, he would not lie about such a thing. So, maybe there really was a crisis shrouding the sane galaxy without them knowing. How do you want to bet? In the end, Angel decided to bet with Black. She believed that Chuan could win this game. Seeing that Angel finally agreed, a smile appeared on Black's face. He said to Angel, Let's bet. If Chuan wins, I'll tell you about that thing. If Wang Qi wins, you have to marry me and be my woman. We'll announce our marriage to the whole universe. Angel had already guessed that Black would propose such a bet. She pursed her lips and replied after a moment of thought, Okay, we'll bet. Remember what you said. Please also remember what you promised me. Black looked at Angel with blazing eyes. I've been waiting for this day for too many years. Now that the bet was made, Black left with satisfaction, leaving Angel full of doubts. She looked in the direction of the arena with a thoughtful look on her face. She felt that something was not quite right. Something that can destroy the entire sane galaxy. What is it? Chapter 907. On the stage, Chuan and Wang Qi were both making their final preparations. Chuan was relatively calm, but Wang Qi's gaze towards Chuan was filled with unwillingness. Chuan was extremely puzzled by Wang Qi's gaze. They had only met for the first time, so why did Wang Qi have such a huge grudge against him? Could it be because of the emotional entanglement between Duke Black Chess and Duke Angel? That shouldn't be the case, right? Obviously, Chuan didn't know that Wang Qi had such a grudge against him because of the matter regarding his source of spirit. In Wang Qi's opinion, using his source of spirit in a match against him was a complete waste. If he could save his source of spirit for a crucial match, then Wang Qi had absolute confidence that he could win the championship of this Talisman Array Master Exchange. I'll definitely teach you a lesson and make you, a rank 5 Talisman Array Master, lose all face. At this moment, the referee had already walked onto the stage and stood between Chuan and Wang Qi. He began to announce some of the rules of the match. Aside from talisman brushes and array discs, the two of them weren't allowed to use anything else. However, things like medicines could be used in advance, so it wasn't considered a violation of the rules. Any participant that left the range of the stage would be considered to have admitted defeat. The referee can intervene when a participant's life is in danger. Once the referee intervenes, the participant that was helped will be declared the loser. If you have any questions, you can appeal to the organizer afterwards. These are the rules. Do you have any other questions? The referee solemnly looked at Chuan before shifting his gaze towards Wang Qi. After confirming that the two of them didn't have any questions, he said in a clear voice, The match will officially begin in 3 minutes. Participants, please make your final preparations. As he spoke, the referee placed an hourglass on the stage. Once the last grain of sand fell into the hourglass, the match would begin. Chuan looked at the small and exquisite hourglass on the stage and could not help but feel a little emotional. He thought back to his time in the exiled lands, when he had participated in the 6th Great Academy's ranking tournament as a representative of the Black Moon Combat Academy. At that time, he was still very young and had not experienced many things. All he wanted to do was to do his best to win every match and not disappoint those who had high hopes for him. At that time, he had participated in the tournament for the sake of those expectations and trust. Now, he was once again standing on the stage to fight for himself. If he wanted to survive in this dangerous world, he had to do everything he could to make himself stronger. When the last grain of sand fell, Chuan and Wang Qi moved almost at the same time. Chuan did not use the talisman brush and directly formed an array in the void. He wanted to seize the first opportunity, but what surprised him was that Wang Qi made the same choice as him. Both of them were forming an array in the void, and Wang Qi was even faster. Buzz! When a blue talisman array appeared in front of Wang Qi, Chuan had just finished inscribing the 10-directional thunder prison. Streaks of lightning flashed in the air above the stage, releasing an extremely violent aura. Whoosh! An invisible stream of air gushed out from the talisman array in front of Chuan. The moment it approached Chuan, it suddenly turned into a sharp hurricane, as if it wanted to tear Chuan to pieces. At this moment, a blue thunder shield appeared in front of Chuan, blocking the tearing of the hurricane for Chuan. However, under the tearing of the hurricane, the thunder shield only lasted for 2 breaths of time before it shattered. The moment the thunder shield shattered, a new thunder shield was born. At the same time, the all-directional thunder prison also launched an attack on Wang Qi. Countless bolts of lightning fell from the sky, completely enveloping Wang Qi. However, Wang Qi smiled confidently in the face of this situation. He didn't dodge or evade. He allowed the lightning to strike him, but it was blocked by the invisible wind wall around him. It turned out that not long ago, Wang Qi had inscribed the 2nd talisman array, the flowing wind shield, which had a super strong defensive effect. Wow! The audience suddenly burst into exclamations. No one in the audience expected that the battle between Chuan and Wang Qi would not have any probing. The beginning of the battle was a fierce attack that left no room for maneuver. The excitement of the battle far exceeded everyone's expectations. Rumble. The 10-directional thunder prison increased the intensity of its attack. The thunderbolts fell like raindrops, completely covering Wang Qi. However, the hurricane did not stop tearing at the thunder shield. Obviously, Chuan's attack did not have any effect on Wang Qi. Walala! All of a sudden, the sound of a surging tide could be heard in the arena. The sound became more and more intense, and at the same time, it started to rain heavily on the arena. The audience subconsciously raised their heads to look at the sky. When they saw the vast ocean floating in the air, everyone's faces were filled with horror. Vast ocean talisman array. With Chuan's angry roar, the vast ocean poured down from the sky and engulfed the entire arena in an instant. Not only did it isolate Chuan from the hurricane, but it also sent the thunderbolts to every corner of the arena. This was a new combination battle array that Chuan had carefully researched. With the vast ocean talisman array as the carrier, it maximized the destructive power and coverage of the thunderbolts. Whether it was in a one-on-one or a one-on-one battle, it had extremely terrifying lethality. And this was not all. 5 elements rotation talisman array combination. Chuan's face was flushed and his eyes were bloodshot. At this time, he had put all his eggs in one basket. Controlling 4 talisman arrays at the same time was his limit. If he continued, his brain would definitely collapse. If this attack could not defeat Wang Qi, he would lose for sure. Therefore, he had to do it in one go. Sharp metal talisman array. Metal begets water. With the support of the 5 elements rotation talisman array, the power of the vast ocean talisman array was even stronger than before. It set off monstrous waves in the arena and erupted with earth-shattering momentum. In the face of Qin Chuan's continuous attacks, Wang Qi had completely lost his ability to respond. His eyes were filled with panic as he looked around at the water currents and the power of thunder all around him. His boundless mental strength could do nothing but maintain the flowing wind shield. How can this be? How could he be so terrifying? Wang Qi's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. He wanted to counterattack, but when he used his mental strength to engrave the talisman array, the flowing wind shield immediately showed a flaw and was instantly destroyed by the vast ocean. Walala! The seawater on the arena gradually dissipated, the thunder stopped, and the golden light faded. In an instant, the arena became clean. Except for Qin Chuan, who was standing, and Wang Qi, whose face was covered in blood, there was nothing left. In the audience, everyone fell into a long silence as they looked at the two people in the ring. They didn't know how to describe their feelings at this time. If they had to vent their feelings, they would have to cheer excitedly to vent it thoroughly. Boom! Suddenly, there was a burst of enthusiastic cheers in the arena. The cheers turned into a sound wave that rushed in all directions. Everyone was amazed by Qin Chuan's strong performance. Everyone was convinced by Qin Chuan's strength. Number 109, Qin Chuan won. Chapter 908. This was a match that was extremely fast-paced and brilliant to the point it caused everyone to slap the table and cry out in praise. All the spectators were subdued by Qin Chuan's domineering display. If it was said that Qin Chuan was famous earlier because he'd broken through to become a level 5 talisman formation master, then Qin Chuan was famous now because of his strength. Under such a tight and powerful attack, even the favorites for the championship, Shu Tao and Bi Lang, might not be able to withstand it, let alone Wang Qi. Qin Chuan slowly walked down the stage amidst the enthusiastic cheers of the spectators, while Wang Qi was carried down by the medical staff. After leaving the stage, Qin Chuan returned to his lounge and bumped into Sophie. Qin Chuan, the Grand Duke has an important matter to discuss with you. When Sophie saw Qin Chuan, she immediately said to Qin Chuan, "The Grand Duke requests that you drop everything you're doing and come over immediately." Seeing how serious Sophie's attitude was, Qin Chuan immediately nodded and said, "I understand. Let's go over now." Qin Chuan and Sophie arrived at the box where Angel was. When he saw Angel, Qin Chuan couldn't help but be slightly stunned. He had clearly won the match, so why was Angel's expression so foul? "Grand Duke, do you have something urgent to discuss with me?" Qin Chuan walked in and directly asked Angel. He was very curious as to what had caused Angel's expression to be so foul. Angel took a deep breath and forcefully suppressed the anger in her heart. She said to Qin Chuan, "Black broke his promise." Qin Chuan was slightly stunned when he heard this. He asked in confusion, "What do you mean? Broke his promise?" Angel explained to Qin Chuan in a low voice, "The black chess piece came to me first and made a bet with me on the outcome of your match. He lost, but he didn't intend to fulfill his promise and disappeared." After hearing Angel's explanation, Qin Chuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Could be that Angel's expression was so foul because of this? That wasn't necessary, was it? Seeing Qin Chuan's disapproving expression, Angel pursed her lips and said to Qin Chuan, "I didn't explain clearly enough. This bet is not only related to me and Black, but also the survival of the entire Sane Star system." After listening to Angel's detailed explanation of the bet, the expression on Qin Chuan's face became serious. He did not expect such a huge matter to be involved in this bet. Moreover, from the fact that the black chess piece disappeared after losing the bet, it was very likely that this matter was true. The black chess piece must be confident of winning, so he used this matter to bet with you. He didn't expect that the king chess piece would lose to me, so he chose to disappear when he realized how great the impact of this matter would be if it was leaked out. Qin Chuan frowned and analyzed. Even if we send a warning to Odysseus with this one-sided story, it won't have much effect. In the end, we have to find Black and force him to tell us about that matter. After hearing Qin Chuan's analysis, Angel nodded and said to Qin Chuan, What you said makes sense, but where are we going to find Black now? Wang Qi, Qin Chuan said almost without thinking. As Black's favorite junior, Wang Qi must know something about Black's whereabouts. Let's go find Wang Qi now and force him to tell us Black's whereabouts, but I just defeated him. With his pride, I'm afraid he'll never be willing to tell us Black's whereabouts. No matter what, we have to make Wang Qi talk. Angel stood up and said to Qin Chuan, Let's go. Let's go find Wang Qi immediately. Damn it, how could Wang Qi lose? Didn't he take the source of spirit? But I saw him take the source of spirit with my own eyes. In the darkness, Black's face was full of anger. He did not expect such an accident to happen when he was supposed to win. Fortunately, he had left the arena in time. If he had been stopped by Angel, he would have ended up in a very bad situation. However, when he thought that he had already told Angel something that he shouldn't have said, Black's mood became extremely irritable. Once Angel spoke about this matter, perhaps their plan would fail, and he would definitely be killed by then. No, I have to find a way to remedy this. Black's eyes flickered. In the end, he decided to confess to those people and launch the plan in advance before the matter was exposed. In the infirmary, Wang Qi, who had just woken up, didn't expect that the first person he saw would be Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan, are you here to show off your victory to me? Wang Qi looked at Qin Chuan with extreme anger. Qin Chuan had won the game, and now he was standing in front of him to show off. This was simply too much. He couldn't bear it. Seeing Wang Qi so angry, Qin Chuan immediately explained to Wang Qi, I'm not here to show off to you. I want to ask you something. Where is the Grand Duke of Black? When he heard Qin Chuan mention the Grand Duke of Black, Wang Qi's mood immediately became more agitated. He had taken such a precious source of spirit, but he didn't get the victory that the Grand Duke of Black wanted. At that time, the Grand Duke of Black would not easily forgive him. If Qin Chuan saw the Grand Duke of Black now, it would definitely irritate the Grand Duke of Black. Then he would really die. Don't even think about it. Wang Qi roared, If you want to kill me now. Why do you have to use this method? Looking at the irritable Wang Qi, Qin Chuan was really helpless. He knew that his appearance would definitely irritate Wang Qi and make him lose his mind. Look, there was no one else in Wang Qi's eyes except for him. He completely ignored Angel, who was standing on the other side. Wang Qi. Angel finally couldn't stand it anymore. She called Wang Qi and said to him, It's not Qin Chuan who wants to see the Grand Duke of Black, but I want to see him. When Wang Qi heard Angel's words, he subconsciously turned his head and looked at Angel. When he saw who Angel was, he was slightly stunned and said with some surprise, Grand Duke Angel, are you the one who wants to see the Grand Duke of Black? Angel nodded and said to Wang Qi, I want to see the Grand Duke of Black because I have something very important to discuss with him, but I can't contact him. Do you know where he might appear? When Wang Qi heard this, he couldn't help but show a look of embarrassment on his face. He shook his head and said, I don't know where the Grand Duke of Black went. Why are you looking for him? Angel took a deep look at Wang Qi and replied, After all these years, I've thought it through. I'm going to marry him. If you can't find him, then this matter is over. Hearing Angel's words, Qin Chuan couldn't help but be stunned. He really didn't expect Angel to say such words in order to get the whereabouts of the Grand Duke of Black. She was simply putting in a lot of effort. Chapter 909. You want to marry Grand Duke Black? Wang Qi found it hard to believe his ears. He actually heard Grand Duchess Angel say that she wanted to marry the Grand Duke of Black Chess. Was this a dream? Looking at the shocked expression on Wang Qi's face, Angel nodded and replied, That's what I originally thought, but I'm not sure if it's just a spur of the moment. If I can't see Black immediately to confirm my feelings, I might change my mind soon. If you see Black then, remember not to tell him about this, lest he comes to bother me again. Hearing Angel's words, Wang Qi's expression suddenly became a little interesting. As a close person to the Grand Duke of Black Chess, he knew better than anyone how obsessed the Grand Duke of Black Chess was with Grand Duke Angel. If the Grand Duke of Black Chess knew what happened today, he would definitely push all the responsibility to Wang Qi. At that time, Wang Qi would probably be crushed into ashes by the Grand Duke of Black Chess. He had to do something for this trip. Wang Chi said to Angel nervously and uneasily. Grand Duke Angel, I really don't know where Grand Duke Black is now, but maybe there's someone who can find Grand Duke Black. Hearing Wang Chi's words, Angel asked faintly, Who? Wang Chi replied, The president of the Anders Group, a guy covered in a black robe. As for his name, I don't know. After getting the answer they wanted, Qin Chuan and Angel left the infirmary. Angel looked at Qin Chuan's grave expression and asked, Do you know something? Why do you look so pale? Qin Chuan looked up at Angel and said in a deep voice, This matter might be related to Zerg. Zerg? Angel was slightly stunned and asked uncertainly, That Holy Clan? Zerg who calls himself Holy Clan. Nodding his head, Qin Chuan said to Angel, There's something wrong with this in Anders conglomerate, and it's huge. Qin Chuan clearly remembered that when he had just arrived in Sinai City, he had encountered the terrifying black-robed man at the entrance of the NC group because of the little armored dragon. Initially, Qin Chuan did not link the two incidents together, but when Wang Chi mentioned the NC group, Qin Chuan realized that there must be a connection between the two. Angel looked at Qin Chuan in confusion and asked, How do you know this has something to do with Zerg? What exactly do you know? Qin Chuan organized his thoughts and said to Angel, I once met a mysterious man in a black robe at the entrance of the NC group. I can confirm that he is Zerg. Wang Chi also said that the CEO of the NC group is also a man in a black robe. Hearing Qin Chuan's explanation, Angel's face suddenly became serious and asked again, This is no small matter. Can you take responsibility for your words? I'm sure. Qin Chuan nodded firmly. This matter must have something to do with Zerg. Angel immediately said, Let's go. Qin Chuan asked, Where are we going? The NC group? Angel shook her head. No, we're going to see the Emperor. Under Angel's lead, the two of them flew all the way to the Imperial City and arrived in front of Emperor Odyssey without any obstructions. Earlier, during the opening ceremony of the Talisman Formation Master Exchange, Qin Chuan had seen the clone of Grand Emperor Odyssey, and it was dignified and domineering. Now, when he faced Grand Emperor Odyssey's main body, Qin Chuan was unable to sense any pressure from Grand Emperor Odyssey, and it was like he was facing an ordinary middle-aged man. Angel, why are you in such a hurry to see me? Is there something important? Odyssey looked calmly at Qin Chuan and Angel, his gaze resting on Angel. Angel looked at Odyssey and said in a deep voice, Emperor, it's very likely that Black is colluding with Zerg. They want to harm our sane star system. We must find them and stop their plan. Odyssey could not help but frown slightly when he heard Angel's words. He asked, Do you have any evidence? Emperor, I don't have any evidence, but I'm sure it's true. Angel said to Odyssey, It's better to believe it than not. It'll be too late for us to stop them once they start their plan. Facing the anxious Angel, Odysseus fell into a long silence. When Angel couldn't help but want to persuade him again, he waved his hand and said to Angel, Before I have conclusive evidence, I can't do anything to the black chess piece. I'll send someone to find the black chess piece and summon him here to confront you. Angel could not help but be stunned when she heard Odyssey's answer. She looked at Odyssey in astonishment. She had never expected Odyssey to say such a thing. Emperor, what if Black casually finds a reason to refuse your summons? Angel asked, Can you take action directly if Black refuses your summons? Although Angel did not understand why Odyssey would make such a decision, she still wanted to try and persuade Odyssey. I'll naturally make the corresponding arrangements when the time comes. All right, Angel, go back and watch the competition quietly. I'll send someone to investigate this matter clearly. Odyssey seemed to have lost interest in continuing to communicate with Angel, and he actually wanted to drive her away. Angel felt like she was going crazy in the face of Odyssey's almost indifferent attitude. She really could not understand why Odyssey, the great emperor of the Sane Star system, was so indifferent to something that could destroy the Sane Star system. This was not the style of Odyssey in her impression of him. However, Odyssey was not willing to give Angel a chance to persuade him again. He directly ordered his servants to send Angel and Qin Chuan out of the hall. Angel stood outside the hall with a gloomy face. If she had known that this would be the result of coming to find Odyssey, she would not have come at all. Grand Duke, let's leave here first. Qin Chuan looked at Angel, who was in an extremely bad mood. His expression was also extremely ugly, but it was not because of their encounter just now, but because he had made a more important discovery. I don't understand why the Emperor would make such a stupid decision. After leaving the Imperial City, Angel was finally able to speak her mind without fear. Qin Chuan took a deep look at Angel and said, "The Emperor would definitely not make a stupid decision. But what if the person we saw just now was not the Emperor?" Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Angel could not help but show a look of shock on her face. She cried out involuntarily, "That person was not the Emperor? How is that possible?" Chapter 9:10. Qin Chuan looked at Angel with a serious expression and said, "I know that what I'm saying sounds crazy, but I'm not saying this for no reason." Angel nodded. Then she looked at Qin Chuan. Angel looked at Qin Chuan with a sharp gaze and said in a deep voice, "Tell me what you found. I hope you know what you're talking about. I only want to hear the truth at this time. Any lie can lead to very bad things. You must know what I mean." Qin Chuan took a deep breath and said to Angel, "I've seen a person before. He was possessed by Zerg. On the surface, it was still him, but in fact his soul had been imprisoned. The one who really controlled this body was Zerg." Angel immediately asked, "If it was a possession, I would have found some clues just now." Qin Chuan pursed his lips and explained, "As I said, this is a special kind of possession. It doesn't erase the soul of the possessed, but imprisons the possessed so that the possessed can continue to live. If you perceive this kind of possession from the outside, you won't be able to detect anything wrong." Angel was puzzled and asked again, "Since it can't be perceived from the outside, how do you know about this?" Qin Chuan looked at Angel with some difficulty and said, "This is my secret. I can't tell you, but what I can tell you is that I'm telling the truth. Moreover, we've already alerted the other party. It's very likely that they'll carry out their plan in advance or attack the two of us. So, we have to think of a countermeasure." The reason why Qin Chuan knew that Odyssey the Great was not the real Odyssey the Great was because the little armored dragon had sensed the existence of another sacred king in Odyssey the Great's body. This time, because of the protection of the runic sword, the other party was not able to discover the little armored dragon. Otherwise, they might not have been able to leave the Imperial City so easily. The existence of the little armored dragon was a secret to Qin Chuan. He could not tell Angel. If Angel did not want to believe him, there was nothing he could do. Phew, what a depressing day. Angel took a deep breath and let out a long sigh of relief. The series of events that happened today was too much of a shock to her. She had to calm down and think about what she should do next. "Qin Chuan, what do you think we should do?" Angel looked at Qin Chuan. Now, Qin Chuan was the only one she could discuss with. At the same time, she was glad that she had Qin Chuan by her side. If she had to face all these alone, she would feel great pressure even if she was a powerful cultivator at the Dongshu stage. Faced with Angel's question, Qin Chuan pondered for a moment. Then, he said to Angel, "What we need to do now is to find the black chess piece and force them to tell us what their plan is. We don't know anything now. Even if we want to do something, we don't know how to do it." Angel nodded. Then, she said to Qin Chuan, "What you said makes sense. But if the CEO of the Anders Corporation is really the Zerg you mentioned, wouldn't it be too reckless for us to just go there? Since the other party was confident that they could destroy the Sane Star system, it meant that they had an extremely powerful force in their hands. Now that they had been exposed, they might fall into the other party's trap if they went to the Anders Corporation." Qin Chuan replied helplessly, "I've also considered this problem, but we don't have a better choice now. We can only start with the Anders Corporation." "Then let's go." Angel looked at Qin Chuan with a subtle gaze and said, "You're still young. Your future is limitless. I'll allow you to be a deserter this time. If you encounter any danger, don't talk about loyalty. I'll cover you." Hearing Angel's words, Qin Chuan gave her a deep look and said, "Then I won't say anything. When the time comes, if you die, I will definitely avenge you." "Bastard, what did you just say? You actually leaked out our plan." The black-robed man looked at the black chess piece in front of him angrily. He almost couldn't help but tear the black chess piece into pieces. Facing the furious black-robed man, the black chess piece knew that he was in the wrong, so he didn't try to defend himself. He said to the black-robed man, "I know I'm in the wrong, but I've already tried my best to make up for it. Even if you kill me now, you won't be able to change this fact. Let's think about how to salvage everything." Hearing Black's words, the black-robed man snorted coldly. Just as he was about to say something, his optical supercomputer suddenly received a message. When he saw the content of the message, he said to Black in a deep voice, "Angela has found Odysseus and wants him to take action. If I hadn't made arrangements beforehand, the plan might have really failed." The black chess piece was shocked and asked, "They found the emperor? Then aren't I in danger?" "Danger? Hee. The one in danger isn't you, it's Odysseus." The black-robed man sneered, "I originally wanted to wait until Odysseus was dealt with before executing the plan. Now, it seems like I have to bring it forward." The black chess piece couldn't help but exclaim, "You've made a move on the emperor?" "Emperor? The ruler of a small galaxy, a mere intermediate Dongshu realm cultivator, is qualified to call himself an emperor?" The black-robed man looked disdainful. "The emperor you speak of is now curled up in a corner of his body, trembling. He could be swallowed and assimilated at any time." The black chess piece couldn't believe it. If the black-robed man hadn't said it himself, he would never have thought that the Emperor Odysseus he had revered for so long had become a prisoner. His life could even be in danger at any time. Seeing the shock on the black chess piece's face, the black-robed man said indifferently, "Without Odysseus' support, the sane galaxy is a piece of fat meat that can be swallowed at any time. Since our plan has been leaked, we'll bring it forward. The result will be the same anyway, so it doesn't matter." But the black-robed man suddenly changed the topic and coldly glared at the black chess piece. "If you dare to do anything to ruin my plans, don't blame me for being impolite." In the face of the black-robed man's threat, the black chess piece's face couldn't help but become extremely unsightly. Since the other party could control Odysseus, they could naturally easily control his life and death. This made the black chess piece regret what he had done before. "I know. I'll be careful what I say in the future." After getting the black chess piece's promise, the black-robed man snorted coldly and said to the black chess piece, "There's nothing for you to do here. You can go back. Our plan will begin in a day." Chapter 9:11. The competition was still going on, but Qin and Angel were no longer paying attention to it. They were thinking about how to find out about the other party's plan. "This is the Anders Corporation." Angel looked at the skyscraper in front of her and frowned slightly. She said to Qin, "Although I haven't been to Sane City for many years, I don't remember such a corporation existing in Sane City. This Anders Corporation seems to have appeared out of nowhere without any warning." Although Sane City was huge, there were very few corporations that could occupy an entire skyscraper in such a prime location. There was no reason for Angel not to have heard of the Anders Corporation, unless this corporation had just been established not long ago. Qin said to Angel, "I've investigated this Anders Corporation before, but there are very few records about this corporation on the internet. From the various sources, the Anders Corporation should have been established 3 years ago." 3 years? There's no way. They've only been hiding in Sane City for 3 years. They would need at least 30 years to obtain the right to use such a skyscraper in Sane City, and they would need the help of someone with a powerful background. Angel said in a deep voice, "Black must have helped them obtain the right to use this skyscraper." Qin couldn't help but frown slightly after hearing Angel's words. He said to Angel, "If obtaining the right to use such a skyscraper in Sane City is a very difficult thing to do, then why would they do it? What effect would this skyscraper have on their plan? Could it be that they just want to establish a corporation to hide their true identity? I think it's easier for them to be exposed this way." Angel fell into deep thought after hearing Qin's question. What Qin said made sense. If Zerg really had a very secretive plan to carry out, there was no need for him to rent such an eye-catching skyscraper, unless this skyscraper played an extremely important role in his plan and was indispensable. Qin Chuan glanced at Angel and said to her, "It's time for you to perform." Angel looked up at Qin Chuan and asked, "What do you want me to do?" Qin Chuan smiled and said to Angel, "I want to investigate how many people work for the Anders Corporation in Sane City. I don't have any connections in Sane City, but this shouldn't be a problem for you, right?" Angel immediately understood Qin Chuan's question after hearing Qin Chuan's words. She took out her optical computer and sent a message, then said to Qin Chuan, "1 minute at most." Buzz. Just as Angel's voice fell, her optical computer received a reply. When she saw the contents of the reply, Angel's eyes lit up. She said to Qin Chuan, "I found it. The NC Group has never recruited any employees. No one knows what the NC Group's main business is. It seems that this skyscraper only has the NC Group's signboard hanging on it. It looks glamorous on the outside, but there's nothing inside." Qin Chuan shook his head and said with certainty, "No, there must be something inside, and it's something that they don't want others to know." Qin Chuan could not help but think of the dragon's nest in Dragon's Valley. He looked at Angel deeply and said, "If this building is full of Zerg eggs, once these Zerg eggs hatch, perhaps the entire Sane City will become their food." Qin Chuan had seen Zerg do this many times before. Every time Zerg wanted to do something, there would be a plague of Zerg. Therefore, he naturally thought of this point. Angel's eyes flashed with shock when she heard Qin Chuan's words. If Qin Chuan's guess was true, then once all the Zerg eggs in the skyscraper hatched, Sane City would be in danger. Qin Chuan saw Angel's face suddenly turn extremely ugly. He comforted her. "This is just a guess. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. We have to find out what's hidden in this building." Angel said to Qin Chuan in an extremely firm tone, "I'll go in. If I don't come out in an hour, you have to leave this place. If you can't do it, you have to leave Sane City. Run as far as you can." Qin Chuan shook his head and said to Angel, "I know Zerg better than you do. Let me go in with you." Okay, Angel did not waste any more time and directly said to Qin Chuan, "Come with me. I'll walk in front." It was still evening, and the streets were bustling with traffic. Qin Chuan and Angel blended into the crowd and rushed towards the NC Group. With their abilities, it was easy for them to reach the NC Group's skyscraper. However, as soon as they entered the building, they stopped. There's an alarm system. Angel looked at the empty space in front of her with a serious expression. Her sixth sense told her that if they continued to move forward, they would definitely trigger the alarm system Zerg set up here. Qin Chuan looked ahead and did not see any obvious alarm system. He could not help but feel confused. At this moment, Angel explained to Qin Chuan, "You'll know why I said that when you reach the Dongshu stage. Trust my sixth sense." After hearing Angel's explanation, Qin Chuan's heart skipped a beat. He said in a low voice, "If I can't see it, then let's lure it out." Angel looked at Qin Chuan curiously and asked, "What are you going to do?" Qin Chuan did not answer Angel's question. He slowly closed his eyes, as if he was thinking about something. In fact, he was communicating with the little armored dragon in his mind. He did not know much about Zerg's methods, but the little armored dragon should be able to do it on its own. The result of the communication between Qin Chuan and the little armored dragon made Qin Chuan happy, because the little armored dragon did find something special in front of them. "It's Zerg eggs." Qin Chuan opened his eyes and looked at Angel. "There are countless Zerg eggs that are smaller than dust floating in the air in front of us. Once we touch these Zerg eggs, they will quickly hatch and attach themselves to us, exposing us to Zerg surveillance." After hearing Qin Chuan's words, a look of surprise flashed across Angel's face. She said in a low voice, "In that case, there are indeed some unspeakable secrets in this building." But Angel hesitated. "How are we going to get in?" Qin Chuan smiled and said to Angel, "Leave this to me." Chapter 9:12. ZZZT. Qin Chuan reached out his right hand and released a thumb-sized ball of lightning energy. The ball of lightning energy slowly split into tens of thousands of tiny balls of lightning energy and then scattered in all directions. "Wait patiently for a while. Qin Xuan said to Angel. In 3 minutes, these eggs will all die under my lightning energy. Hearing Qin Xuan's words, Angel pursed her lips slightly and said to Qin Xuan, "It's really fortunate that you came. If you didn't come, I really don't know what to do." If Qin Xuan did not come with them, Angel would have most likely tried to force her way in, and then Zerg would definitely be alerted. Needless to say, she would have ended up like this. 3 minutes was not a long time, but for Qin Xuan and Angel, it was extremely long. It even made them feel a little tormented. After all, they were currently inside the Anders conglomerate, Zerg's territory. If they were discovered, the consequences would not be good. Grand Duke, why are you so desperate? Qin Xuan was a little curious. With the Grand Duke's strength, even if you leave the same galaxy and leave your identity as a Grand Duke, you can still live very well. There's no need to risk your life for some unrelated people. Hearing Qin Xuan's words, Angel asked back, "What about you? Why are you so desperate?" Qin Xuan pursed his lips and replied, "The grudge between Zerg and I can't be explained in a few words. I can tell you very responsibly that I will always be on the opposite side of Zerg. If I have a chance, I even want to kill Zerg. In a land of exile, too many of Qin Xuan's friends died in the hands of Zerg. The human race had been bullied by Zerg for thousands of years. The hatred between him and Zerg had long reached an irreconcilable level. It was either you die or I live." Hearing Qin Xuan's answer, a subtle look appeared on Angel's face, and she replied, "Actually, I'm not risking my life for anyone. I just don't want the same galaxy to be destroyed in the hands of anyone. This is the world that he once protected with his life. Before I die, I won't give up on saving the same galaxy." What a touching love story. Qin Xuan smiled and suddenly took a step forward. "Let's go. The eggs have been cleaned up. We can move around for a while." Angel followed behind Qin Xuan. The two walked down the corridor for a long time and finally reached the end. They saw dozens of locked rooms. Looking at these rooms, Qin Xuan frowned slightly and said to Angel, "These doors should be locked. If we break them open by force, Zerg will definitely be alerted." Angel nodded and said to Qin Xuan, "We have to find a way to break the lock and get in without being noticed. I know a friend who's an expert at picking locks. No lock can stop him. He's in Sane City now. If I ask him to come here, it'll take at least 10 minutes. Hurry up. We can't afford to wait." Qin Xuan looked at Angel. Although Zerg might not be patrolling, it's better to be careful. While Angel was contacting the expert, Qin Xuan looked around to see if he could find anything. He walked to the door and communicated with the little armored dragon in his mind. "Little armored dragon, can you sense if there's Zerg in this room? Or if there's a bigger Zerg egg?" In response to Qin Xuan's question, the little armored dragon shook its head and spread its hands. Its face was full of helplessness. Seeing this, Qin Xuan understood what the little armored dragon meant. It seemed that this room was not as simple as a lock. It could also isolate the senses of the outside world. With the little armored dragon's ability, if it could not sense if there were Zerg eggs or Zerg in the room, then they should not even think about it. Angel's friend came faster than expected and arrived in less than 8 minutes. What Qin Xuan did not expect was that Angel's friend was actually a beautiful woman with a hot body. "Hey, Angel, when did you start doing such sneaky things?" The beautiful woman with blonde wavy hair glanced at Qin Xuan and said to Angel, "Could it be that you've been led astray by this guy?" The Grand Duke of Rose City and the famous Level 5 formation master Qin Xuan broke into a room to steal. If this were to spread out, I'm afraid a lot of people's jaws would drop. Hearing this, Angel shook her head and responded, "Gene, I don't have time to chat and bicker with you now. See if this door can be opened." Seeing the serious expression on Angel's face, the beautiful woman called Jean Lee stopped talking nonsense. She walked to the door and took a look. Then she frowned and said to Angel, "This door lock actually uses the 9 techniques of door sealing." Hearing this, Angel asked curiously, "What are the 9 techniques of door sealing?" The 9 arts of sealing the door is a sealing technique. It can also be said to be a sealing technique. This technique has long been lost. I didn't expect to see this technique on such an ordinary door. Jean Lee looked at Angel and asked, What's behind this door? I don't know, but it's not something good. Angel looked at Jean Lee and asked, Can you open this door? Jean Lee smiled and replied, Give me 5 minutes. Anders group, top floor. The black-robed man sat on the sofa with a glass of scarlet wine in his hand. He gently swirled it and seemed to be in a good mood. Tap, tap, tap. A tall figure slowly walked over and knelt respectfully in front of the black-robed man. He whispered, Envoy, someone has invaded the group and is trying to open the door. Hearing the subordinate's report, the black-robed man chuckled and said indifferently, Their actions are very fast. It's a little beyond my expectations. Since they want to see what's behind the door so much, let them have a good look. I hope they'll like the gift we prepared for them. Few done. Jean Lee looked at her masterpiece with satisfaction, and a happy smile appeared on her face. She always liked to challenge this kind of difficult lock. This trip was not in vain. Hearing Jean Lee's words, Angel stepped forward and wanted to open the door. However, Qin reached out and stopped Angel at this time. Don't open the door. Angel was slightly taken aback when she heard this. She raised her head and looked at Qin. When she saw the grave expression on Qin's face, her expression also turned solemn. She asked, What did you discover? Qin said in a deep voice, I think you definitely don't want to see what's behind this door. The moment the door was opened, the little armored dragon clearly sensed a powerful and evil aura coming from behind the door. If it was open now, the consequences would be unimaginable. Chapter 9:14. Dragon God. Similar exclamations erupted from the top floor of the Anders Corporation. The black-robed man stared at the azure thunder dragon on the surveillance screen and could not help but be shocked. How could a dragon god appear in the same galaxy? How? How is this possible? Even though he had seen it with his own eyes, the black-robed man still could not believe it. He could not accept this fact. As far as he knew, creatures like Dragon God had been extinct in the universe for hundreds of thousands of years. Even in the land of exile, the black-robed man seemed to have thought of something. He exclaimed, Could it be that this dragon god came from the land of exile? How'd he get here? The black-robed man had too many questions and had too many unanswered questions. He had to get to the bottom of this. Qin did not want to reveal his dragon form unless he had no other choice. He knew that once he revealed his dragon form, it would definitely attract some unnecessary trouble. However, in the face of a fatal crisis, he could not care less. His life was the most important thing. Since he had revealed his dragon form, Qin had no more scruples. He immediately unleashed his full strength and killed dozens of monsters in an instant. However, the largest monster was still very difficult to deal with. It was difficult for him to deal with it alone. Angel, come and help me. Qin roared at Angel. When she heard Qin's call, Angel was stunned for a moment. Then, she quickly regained her senses and rushed to Qin's side. She looked at the huge dragon body, and her eyes were still filled with shock. She never thought that she would be able to see an extinct creature appear in the world again. How can I help you? Angel looked at Qin and then at the huge monster. She did not know what to do. Qin took a deep breath and said to Angel, Help me block this thing for a minute. When she heard Qin's words, Angel knew that Qin was going to use his ultimate move. She did not hesitate to say to Qin, Okay, I will buy you enough time. There's no need to fight for time. You guys no longer have a chance. At this moment, the figure of the black-robed man suddenly appeared in front of Qin and Angel. His body emitted an extremely dangerous aura, causing Qin and Angel's expressions to instantly become extremely unsightly. It's really unexpected. After so many years, the divine dragon that should have existed forever in the historical records has once again appeared in the world. It's really too surprising. To be honest, I'm a little shocked. The black-robed man looked at Qin as if he was admiring a work of art. His eyes were full of fascination. He said in a low voice, I will try my best to preserve your body and make you into a specimen for display. You will definitely become the most beautiful treasure in my collection. You're the mastermind behind this. What do you want to do? Angel shouted angrily at the black-robed man. She wanted to know why the black-robed man was targeting the same galaxy. Faced with Angel's question, the black-robed man chuckled and replied, "Isn't what I want to do obvious enough? I want to destroy the same galaxy and all of you humanoids." As the black-robed man laughed maniacally, the entire skyscraper suddenly shook violently. Countless cracks appeared on the walls of the building. As the walls peeled off, countless insect eggs appeared in front of Qin and Angel. They could even clearly hear the strong heartbeats coming from the eggs. Seeing this scene, Qin and Angel could not help but feel their scalps tingle. They did not expect so many insect eggs to be hidden in the walls of the skyscraper. "Ha ha ha, do you see my babies? When my babies come out of the eggshells, they will devour the entire sane city, and then the entire sane galaxy." The black-robed man looked at the insect eggs around him with fanatical eyes. "This is the result of my hundreds of years of operation in the sane galaxy. Isn't it wonderful?" "You're crazy." Angel looked at the black-robed man in shock. "What enmity do you have with the sane galaxy for you to do such a crazy thing? It's not you who are wrong, it's Odyssey. He shouldn't have been greedy for something that didn't belong to him. So you are all suffering in Odyssey's place." The black-robed man revealed an extremely shocking piece of information. It turned out that the reason they attacked the sane galaxy was because they coveted something in Odyssey, the Great's hands. But what was it that the black-robed man had been operating in the same galaxy for hundreds of years? Whoosh! Just as Qin and Angel were shocked by this news, the black-robed man suddenly launched an attack on Qin. He appeared in front of Qin like a flash of lightning, his palm aimed at Qin. A terrifying force surged out, instantly rendering Qin completely defenseless. Seeing this, Angel turned around and tried to save Qin. However, the black-robed man only snorted coldly. With a wave of his hand, Angel was repelled. The next moment, the monster came in and blocked Angel's path. "Hee, if I don't strike first, I'm afraid it'll be difficult to keep your body intact." The black-robed man looked at Qin and laughed. "Are you ready to accept the judgment of death?" As the black-robed man's voice fell, Qin felt his body begin to stiffen little by little, as if he had been filled with lead. He had experienced this feeling before. This was the effect of the space law's confinement. The power of law that Jet had mastered was on a completely different level from the power of law that the black-robed man in front of him had mastered. Don't struggle. No one has ever been able to break free from the confinement of the space law. The black-robed man smiled confidently. To be able to die under the strongest law, you can die with no regrets. As the black-robed man's voice fell, Qin had completely lost his perception of his body, and even his consciousness was fading rapidly. At this critical moment, Qin's abdomen suddenly lit up with a golden light. Buzz! The bright golden light instantly penetrated the black-robed man's body, and at the same time, interrupted the black-robed man's control over Qin, allowing Qin to regain his freedom. How is this possible? The black-robed man took 2 steps back and looked at Qin in shock. He didn't know what had attacked him just now. Under the confinement of the space law, how could Qin still have the power to resist? It was really thrilling. Qin took a deep look at the black-robed man and then breathed a sigh of relief. He originally thought that he was hopeless, but the Dragon Ball hidden in his abdomen suddenly released the first transformation of the Dragon Ball's 9 transformations on its own, helping him to solve the predicament in front of him. Chapter 9:15. What is that? The black-robed man stared at Qin in disbelief. Qin was only at the divine transformation stage. Even if he was from the ancient dragon clan, he shouldn't have been able to break through the confinement of his spatial laws. This was simply unbelievable. Qin stared deeply into the black-robed man's eyes. He had no intention of replying. With a roar, he released the light from the dragon orb again, intending to kill the black-robed man in one fell swoop. However, The black-robed man had already suffered a great loss under the light. This time, he would not let Qin Chuan have his way. Whoosh! The figure of the black-robed man suddenly disappeared from Qin Chuan's sight. In the next moment, the countless insect eggs that were piled up on the wall suddenly began to tremble violently and actually began to shatter. The faint cries of insects became louder and louder and noisier. Oh no, this guy has directly hatched all these eggs. Qin Chuan's expression turned extremely ugly when he realized what the black-robed man had done. He used the light to kill the monster that was fighting with Angel, then transformed into his human form and quickly rushed to Angel's side. The black-robed man has hatched all the eggs. This place will soon become an insect nest. It's too late for us to stop this from happening. We have to leave immediately. Angel's expression became extremely frightened when she heard Qin Chuan's words. She exclaimed, "If we retreat now, these insects will definitely invade Sinai City once they hatch. What will happen to the ordinary people?" Angel's expression became extremely ugly when she thought of the entire Sinai City becoming a paradise for these insects. Qin Chuan said in a low voice, "We don't have time to think about this now. It's useless even if we continue to stay here. Do you have a way to destroy this insect nest in an instant?" If there was a way to destroy this insect nest, Qin Chuan would of course be willing to directly wipe out these disgusting insect eggs. However, even with the power of the light, it was impossible to destroy this insect nest in a short period of time. At this moment, the eggs were about to hatch. If they did not leave now, they would become food for these insects. Angel also knew that Qin Chuan was right, but she was unwilling to leave just like that. "I've already broken the seal." At this moment, Jean Li's shout came from not far away. She quickly walked over and asked Qin Chuan and Angel to leave. "Go." Angel clenched her teeth and said firmly, "I can't just leave like this." No matter what the final result was, she had to give it her all. Even if she lost, she would have no regrets. When Qin Chuan saw that Angel was unwilling to leave, he could not help but feel a headache coming on. He was most afraid of people like her who were stubborn at critical moments. "If you don't leave, then we won't leave either. Let everyone die here. When the time comes, no one will be able to inform the people outside to evacuate. More people will die." Qin Chuan said in a deep voice, "Do as you see fit." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Angel's face could not help but show a touch of embarrassment. Seeing this, Jean Li quickly stepped forward and pulled Angel back. She said in an extremely anxious tone, "My dear, don't be so stubborn at such a critical moment." Kacha kacha. The sound of insect eggs cracking rang out one after another. Insects covered in mucus crawled out of the broken eggs one after another. Seeing this scene, Angel finally stopped hesitating and said to Qin Chuan and Jean Li, "Let's go." "There's no need to go. We can't go." Qin Chuan looked ahead with an extremely gloomy expression. With the hatching of the insect eggs, countless mucus poured out, completely blocking the passage opened by Jean Li. If they cannot kill all these insects, they might not be able to get out. Seeing that the only escape route was blocked, Angel's face could not help but show a touch of regret. She said to Qin Chuan, "I'm sorry, I've implicated you. Let's not talk about this nonsense now." Jean Li sighed. "Let's think about what to do now. Get out of the way." Qin Chuan asked Angel and Jean Li to go behind him. He gritted his teeth and once again released Skylight from the Dragon Ball, directly attacking the escape route in front of them. The powerful force penetrated the mucus in an instant, but soon new mucus piled up, making Qin Chuan's previous attack useless. This mucus is not simple. Qin Chuan frowned fiercely. With the power of Skylight, it shouldn't have caused such minor damage. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Just as Qin Chuan was speaking, the newly hatched insects had already stretched their bodies, their dark red compound eyes looking at Qin Chuan and the others, ready to attack. When the first insect took the lead to charge, all the other insects rushed toward Qin Chuan and the others, showing their sharp claws and teeth. "Open!" Angel shouted when she saw this. She raised her hand and waved. Turbulent spiritual energy poured out from her palm, turning into a light curtain that shielded the three of them. At the same time, it evolved into sharp blades that pierced toward the swarm of insects. However, to everyone's surprise, these blades of spiritual energy could not cause any damage to the swarm of insects. "These insects' carapaces are so hard," Angel exclaimed. Even with the strength of her spiritual energy, she could not cause any damage to these insects. This was too exaggerated. Qin Xuan and Jean Li did not expect that with Angel's strength, she could not harm these insects at all. Once these insects left this place, wouldn't it mean that they could run rampant in Sinai City, and no one could kill them? It's not these insects that are powerful, it's the mucus on their bodies that is powerful. Jean Li looked at the mucus on the insects and frowned. It's the mucus that counteracted Angel's attack. Hearing Jean Li's words, Angel was slightly stunned, then said, "Is there any way to get rid of the mucus on these insects?" Qin Xuan did not respond to Angel. Instead, he began to inscribe the vast ocean glyph formation. He planned to use the power of the vast ocean glyph formation to clean the mucus on these insects. When Qin Xuan was about to release the vast ocean glyph formation, the ground under their feet suddenly shook violently, as if some huge monster was about to break free. Hiss. When an extremely sharp cry rang out from underground, the expressions of Qin Xuan and the others became extremely unsightly at the same time. This was because they had sensed that there was an insect hidden beneath their feet at practically the same time. Moreover, it was an extremely powerful insect king. Bang! A thick insect leg with a diameter of 3 meters burst out of the ground, causing the ground to crack. The entire skyscraper began to shake, and as the gigantic insect king's figure continued to appear, the skyscraper finally could not hold on any longer and collapsed with a loud bang. Buzz! The buzzing of the swarm of insects almost instantly resounded throughout Sinai City. Chapter 9:16. In the distant sky, the black-robed man stood in the air, looking at the collapsing skyscraper with a grim expression. "Since you've awakened, let's start the slaughter. Turn this city into a dead city." Whoosh! A figure suddenly appeared beside the black-robed man. He looked at the swarm of insects that had rushed out of the collapsed building, his face alternating between a smug and ferocious expression. His behavior was very strange. The black-robed man did not find the change in the man's expression strange. He chuckled and said faintly, "Take a good look, Odyssey. Because of your greed, Sinai City will become a ghost town. If you don't want the humanoid race to become a slave race, you'd better tell me where that thing is." Hearing the black-robed man's words, Odyssey let out a low growl. "I won't let you get away with it." Hearing Odyssey's difficult answer, the black-robed man snorted coldly and ordered, saying, "Nah, keep him awake. Let him watch Sane City become a dead city little by little. Let him listen to the painful and desperate cries of the people. Let him know how foolish his decision was." "I got it." Saying Nah, who had taken control of Odyssey's body, responded to the black-robed man. He would stand there until Odyssey completely collapsed. When the skyscraper collapsed, the nearby residents of Sane City subconsciously looked at the collapsed building. When they saw countless 1-meter-tall insects flying out of the collapsed building, everyone was shocked. "What's that? Why are there so many insects in Sane City?" "No, these insects are coming for us." All of a sudden, the surrounding residents fell into extreme panic due to the appearance of the insects and fled in all directions. The cultivators ignored Sinai City's ban on flying and directly flew into the air to escape. However, they did not expect that flying in the air would make them even more obvious targets, and they became the main targets of the insect swarm. Puff! An insect flapped its wings and darted forward. Its sharp legs easily pierced through the chest of a gold core cultivator, digging out his heart and stuffing it into its mouth. Then, it chewed and swallowed the heart into its mouth. When they saw this scene, the surrounding people revealed a wisp of extreme terror on their faces, and they turned around and fled madly into the distance. A huge wave of panic gradually spread through Sane City. Roar! A loud roar sounded from the competition venue of the Talisman Formation Master Exchange. All the spectators were cheering for the previous exciting battle. I thought the highlight of the day would be the battle between Qin Xuan and Wang Qi. I didn't expect these two unknown contestants to perform so well in the last battle. Zhuo looked at the cheering crowd and lamented, "I think the contestants this year are a little too strong." The quality of this year's contestants is indeed much better than last year's. Sophie nodded lightly and said to Zhuo, "But I feel that based on the performance of these contestants in the preliminary round, there are probably not many who can fight with Qin Xuan. His performance today really made everyone feel suffocated. It was really too terrifying." Zhuo nodded in agreement and sighed. It's extremely rare to see someone of his age who can achieve so much, at least in our galaxy. Perhaps there are only a few in places like star clusters where geniuses are as common as clouds. Sophie chuckled and said, "Although I've never left the same galaxy and don't know what the geniuses in the larger nebulas or star clusters are like, I think Qin Xuan shouldn't be much worse than them." The two of them were chatting when they suddenly heard a commotion outside. Moreover, it seemed to be getting more and more intense. "Strange, why is it so noisy outside the square? Don't the guards care?" Zhuo was puzzled. What were the people outside arguing about? Just as the two of them were puzzled, a group of people suddenly poured into the square. Every one of them had a look of horror on their faces, as if they had encountered something extremely terrifying. Every one of them had a ferocious look on their faces, and they were wailing loudly. It was as if they had encountered some extreme danger. Sophie looked at the crowd that had rushed into the square like refugees. Just as she was about to say something, she heard a buzzing sound. A huge bug flew in from outside. "What a huge bug!" Zhuo was a little surprised. Were these people driven in by this bug? "There's more than one." Sophie looked at the entrance of the square very seriously. However, in an instant 2 more bugs flew in. It seemed that there were more behind them. Buzz. When dozens of insects flew into the square at the same time, everyone's expression changed slightly, and when hundreds of insects rushed in from behind, everyone's faces revealed a touch of horror. These bugs are very strong. Zhuo face was covered in shock as she gazed at the bugs. She couldn't figure out why so many bugs had appeared in Sinai City. Bugs. So many bugs. There are bugs everywhere outside. So many people have died. The people that had fled in earlier couldn't help but reveal a wisp of despair when they saw the bugs had chased them here, and they started howling madly. Swoosh! A bug suddenly appeared before the person that was howling with grief, and then it directly pierced his throat with its sharp leg, causing his mad howls to be choked back in his throat. A large amount of blood flowed down the bug's leg, and then the bug suddenly stretched out its thin and long tongue and licked it lightly. It seemed to be enjoying it very much. Bang! A wave of exclamations instantly resounded when they saw the bug kill a person with ease. At the same time, a few dozen figures charged towards the bugs from all directions. They were the guards of the organizer of the Talisman Formation Master Exchange and the Imperial City Guards of Sinai City. All of them were nascent soul cultivators. Swoosh! Poochie! However, to everyone's shock, these Imperial City Guards hadn't even approached the bugs when their heads were separated from their bodies. Hiss! 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 After killing the Imperial City Guards, the bugs greedily enjoyed the delicious meat, and they were completely unaware of how great of a shock their actions had brought to everyone. "Run!" Someone in the spectator area shouted, and everyone seemed as if they'd awoken from a dream as they ran outside with terrified expressions. However, they didn't know that the situation outside wasn't any better than the situation in the square, and it might even be worse. However, at this moment, everyone who'd fallen into extreme panic couldn't care less. Only by escaping from the scene of the murder would their nervous and uneasy hearts be relieved. Chapter 917. The huge Sinai city had more than 10 billion residents and countless cultivators. However, in the face of the Zerg's rampage, the people could do nothing but flee in panic In the chaotic crowd, Zwisisi looked around nervously, trying to find Chinchuan's figure. Unfortunately, she only saw unfamiliar faces fleeing in panic. She did not see the person who could give her a sense of security and ease of mind. Chinchuan, where are you? Zwisisi murmured in a low voice. She was being pushed forward by the crowd. At this time, she and Sophie had been separated by the crowd and had completely lost their minds. Buzz. With a buzzing sound, hundreds of flying zergs descended from the sky and rushed into the crowd, wantonly harvesting fresh lives, not even sparing the souls. In the sky, Sang Na, who was controlling Odyssey's body, looked at the chaotic scene below him. He could not help but reveal a sinister smile on his face. However, this smile soon turned into grief. This was Odyssey forcibly seizing control of the body. He wanted to break free from Sang Na's control. Give up. You have no chance. Sang Na opened his mouth and said to Odyssey, as long as you agree to hand over that thing, we will immediately return your freedom to you. At the same time, we will help you eliminate the Zergs and establish a glorious and great image for you in the eyes of your people. Isn't this the best choice for you? You. Don't even think about it. Sang Na released a little of the restriction, and Odyssey immediately roared angrily at Sang Na. He would never surrender to Sang Na and would never hand over that thing. He knew very well that once he lost that thing, he would completely lose his value. At that time, not only would the residents of Sinai City die, but he would also die. You are really stubborn. Sang Na coldly snorted. The expression on his face was extremely gloomy. He had gradually lost all his patience with Odysseus. If it wasn't for the high envoy's order to get that thing from Odysseus' mouth, he would have already obliterated Odysseus. Since you like to watch your people die one by one, I will let you watch it to your heart's content. Sang Na bellowed and issued an order to the swarm to speed up the harvest of the lives of the residents of Sinai City. In just a few moments, blood dyed the ground of Sinai City red, turning it into a blood-red city. Quick, move faster. As the first prince of the royal family, Ao Feng began to organize his men to fight back as soon as he heard the news of the insect swarm wreaking havoc in Sinai City. Unfortunately, most of the men he gathered were just ordinary soldiers. The strongest among them was only at the nascent soul stage. There was no way they could effectively kill the insect swarm. They were just sending themselves to their deaths. Facing such a one-sided situation, Otto really wanted to gather the elite troops of the royal family to counterattack and protect the citizens of Sane City. However, to mobilize the elite troops required Odyssey the Great's written order. Without the written order, the elite troops would only stay where they were and would not listen to anyone's orders, even if Otto was the future ruler of the Crown Prince. General Zhao Deng, we have to fight back. Ao Feng stared fixedly at the middle-aged man in black armor standing in front of him. His expression was extremely anxious. He had to convince Zhao Deng to mobilize the troops. If the Zergs continued to wreak havoc in Sinai City, it wouldn't be long before Sinai City became a ghost town. First Prince, I know you're right. However, without the Great's order, the Black Jade Army can't act on their own. Zhao Deng looked at Otto and pursed his lips. If the First Prince wants to mobilize the Black Jade Army to fight back against the insect swarm, go and get the Great's written order. Hearing Zhao Deng's answer, Otto couldn't help but shout angrily, "Don't you know what it means to be flexible? If you continue to delay, can you bear the responsibility?" First Prince, whether I can bear the responsibility or not, I will bear it. Zhao Deng looked at Otto. However, rules are rules. First Prince, if the Black Jade Army follows your orders without the Great's written order, how do you think the Great will feel? I don't want to think about these schemes now. I just want to destroy the insect swarm. Otto's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. Zhao Deng, I order you to lead the Black Jade Army to attack the insect swarm immediately and protect the citizens of Sinai City. If you dare to disobey my order, I will kill you right now. Zhao Deng was silent for a moment before he helplessly sighed. He said to Otto, First Prince, you're giving the second prince a chance. I can't care about that anymore. Otto roared. Black Jade Army, attack. Target the insect swarm. In an environment where no one was a match for them, the insect swarm could do whatever they wanted in Sinai City. Just when the insect swarm thought that they could continue like this and turn the entire Sinai City into a living hell, they finally met a powerful opponent, the Black Jade Army. As the most powerful army in the entire Sinai City and even the entire Sinai star system, the Black Jade Army had less than 3,000 people. However, all 3,000 of them were soul formation cultivators. They were the best of the best, and the only army that could save Sinai City in Otto's eyes. The Black Jade Army's performance didn't disappoint Otto's trust. With just one clash, they caused casualties to the insect swarm. In the blink of an eye, they killed nearly 100 insect swarm. When the fleeing crowd saw the Black Jade Army attack, their despairing faces finally revealed a trace of joy. They believed that under the attack of the famous Black Jade Army, the insect swarm would soon be annihilated and Sinai City would be restored to its former glory. Just as this thought appeared in everyone's minds, an earth-shattering roar suddenly came from afar. Then, a sharp shriek resounded throughout Sinai City. A huge, dark green beetle burst out of the ground and appeared in everyone's sight. When Otto saw this beetle that was as big as 10 battleships, the smile on his face froze. He couldn't help but reveal a trace of fear in his eyes. How could there be such a huge thing hiding underground? No one could answer A.O. Feng's question because they were all intimidated by the aura of this beetle. This was definitely not an existence that a spirit-severing cultivator could resist. Even an early Dongshu cultivator would be as weak as a piece of white paper in front of this beetle. Black Jade Army attack. While everyone was still in a daze, Zhao Deng roared and led his army to attack the insect swarm. Chapter 9:18. Zhao Deng's figure suddenly appeared beside A.O. Feng. He looked at the huge figure in the distance with a grave expression and said to A.O. Feng in an extremely serious tone, "First Prince, this must be the insect king of the swarm. Even if the Black Jade Army goes all out, they may not be able to stop it. You must evacuate the citizens of Sinai City and seek refuge in another city before the Black Jade Army is completely annihilated." A.O. Feng's face revealed a trace of horror at Zhao Deng's words. He cried out involuntarily, "How can this be? How can the Black Jade Army not be a match for it?" The Insect King's aura was indeed powerful to the point of despair. However, the Black Jade Army had a total of 3,000 spirit-severing cultivators. Furthermore, they had a combination attack. How could 3,000 spirit-severing cultivators not be a match for the Insect King? In response to A.O. Feng's question, Zhao Deng sighed and said, "First Prince, if the Black Jade Army were to face the Insect King alone, we might still have a chance of winning. However, don't forget that there are tens of thousands of flying insects around us. The Black Jade Army can't fight against the Insect King and the Swarm at the same time. Facing the joint attack of the Insect King and the Swarm, we will definitely lose." As the commander of the Black Jade Army, Zhao Deng was the one who understood the Black Jade Army's combat strength the best. He believed that the Black Jade Army could win regardless of whether they were to face the Insect King or the Swarm at the same time. However, if they were to face the Insect King and the Swarm at the same time, the Black Jade Army wouldn't be able to hold on for long. If Sinai City didn't want to be annihilated, then A.O. Feng had to evacuate as many people as possible before the Black Jade Army lost their ability to resist. "Where is the Emperor? Where is the Emperor?" A.O. Feng looked at Zhao Deng with a face full of despair. Why didn't Emperor Odyssey, who was their spiritual pillar, appear when Sinai City was facing annihilation? Zhao Deng couldn't help but reveal a subtle expression when he heard A.O. Feng's question. He said in a deep voice, "I don't know where the Emperor is either. However, I believe that the Emperor will not abandon us. He will definitely rescue us." At this point, Zhao Deng patted A.O. Feng's shoulder and said, "Crown Prince, I can't continue talking with you. I have to go to the front lines and command the Black Jade Army. I'll leave the rest to you." After saying this, Zhao Deng rushed forward in a flash. General Zhao Deng. AO Phone looked at Zhao Deng's departing figure with a complicated expression on his face. He clenched his teeth and said in a deep voice, "I won't disappoint you all. The Insect King's armies attack. Na City, the Black Jade Army's attack. The Black Jade Army swarm of the Black Jade Army's army attack. 100 Soul Formation stage cultivators were enough to destroy any city in the Sinai star system, but they were as fragile as a piece of paper in front of the Insect King. Attack Deng's of the army's army. Under Zhao Deng's organization, the Black Jade Army quickly changed their formation from a charging formation to a defensive formation. With the Insect King as the center, they formed a huge circular formation. Everyone gathered their spiritual energy to form a rope that rushed toward the Insect King. They wanted to bind the Insect King to the spot. Buzz! In the distant sky, hundreds of battleships started to fire their super cannons. The Insect King on the ground seemed to have sensed the danger. It raised its head and roared, summoning the swarm of insects. After receiving the Insect King's summons, the flying insects that had been massacring the residents of Sane City immediately turned their heads and converged towards the Insect King's location, launching an attack on the Black Jade Army and the fleet. The Black Jade Army was able to hold on, but the fleet was severely damaged. The swarm of insects destroyed the Black Jade Army. Oh no, the insect swarm is only trying to surround us. Their real target is the fleet. Zhao Deng saw that the fleet was completely covered by the swarm, and his face couldn't help but become extremely gloomy. He coldly said, "If the fleet can't successfully bombard the Insect King, the situation will become very bad for us." After discovering the intention of the insect swarm, Zhao Deng wanted to send a team to support the fleet. However, when the team rushed out of the encirclement, they were immediately surrounded by the insect swarm. They could not get close to the fleet and had to retreat. Zhao Deng's expression became even more anxious when he saw this. If they could not break out of this situation now, they would have no chance at all once the Zergs destroyed the fleet and counterattacked. What should I do? Zhao Deng was anxious, but he was powerless against the encirclement of the insect swarm. Boom! There was a loud boom in the sky. A battleship finally could not hold on under the attack of the insect swarm. Its engine was completely destroyed, and it fell to the ground. The fall of the first battleship was like a fuse. Then, a few more battleships fell to the ground. Seeing this, Zhao Deng could not help but feel hopeless. With the madness of the insect swarm, it would not take long for all the battleships to fall. By then, the Black Jade Army would be the next to fall. I hope the first prince can move faster. Zhao Deng took a deep breath and turned to look at the Insect King. He said in a deep voice, "All troops listen to my order. Abandon defense and attack the Insect King." No one in the Black Jade Army objected to Zhao Deng's order. They once again aimed at the Insect King and launched a suicidal attack. In the sky, Sang Na watched the Black Jade Army attack the Insect King and could not help but sigh. He said to Odysseus, "I really did not expect a coward like you to be able to train such an excellent army. They're not afraid of death. TSK, TSK, TSK. Unfortunately, they died in vain." Hearing Sang Na's lamentation, Odysseus felt extremely sad and pained. As the supreme leader of the Black Jade Army, he had deep feelings for the Black Jade Army. Now that he saw the Black Jade Army dying in the hands of the Insect King one after another in order to protect Sinai City, he really wanted to die in place of those brave warriors. "Odysseus, do you really want to watch the Black Jade Army that you personally trained die like this?" Sang Na said coldly, "This is your last chance. Once the Black Jade Army dies, it will be too late for you to speak. The Sinai star system will become a fat piece of meat in the eyes of other star systems and will be eaten up. Your humanoid race will also become a slave race and will never be able to rise again." In the face of Sang Na's words, Odysseus's last bit of persistence finally collapsed. "Stop, I will speak." Chapter 919. When he heard Odysseus's desperate and helpless response, saying Na could not help but laugh. He had been waiting for this day for too long. Now he was finally going to get a good result. Hurry up and tell us. The sooner you tell us, the sooner we can restore Sinai City to its former prosperity and stability. You can also continue to be Emperor Odysseus. This is a good thing for all of us. Sangna laughed. Hurry up and tell us. Sangna couldn't wait to bring this good news to the High Commissioner and ask for a reward. Hearing Sangna's words, Odysseus' heart was in agony. He knew very well that Sangna was lying to deceive him. Once Odyssey confirmed the existence of that thing, Sangna would not hesitate to devour his soul. But even if Odyssey knew all this, there was nothing he could do. He could not continue to watch the people of Sinai City die, one after another under the invasion of the Zergs. That thing is boom. Just as Odysseus was speaking, a violent roar suddenly sounded in Sinai City. A thick pillar of lightning rose from the ground and went straight for the Zerg King's abdomen, turning it black. The huge force directly flipped the Zerg King to the ground, causing the earth to shake. Everyone was stunned by this sudden scene. No one knew why a pillar of lightning suddenly rose from the Zerg King's abdomen. It seemed to be able to cause a lot of damage to the Zerg King. Just as everyone was shocked, the pillar of lightning disappeared, and 3 figures quickly rushed out. These 3 people were none other than Qin, Angel, and Jean Li, who were previously buried underground. It's Grand Duke Angel. Zhao Deng recognized Angel. When he saw Angel, he could not help but be slightly stunned. Could it be that the pillar of lightning was released by Grand Duke Angel? Zhao Deng. When Zhao Deng noticed Angel, Angel also noticed Zhao Deng. She quickly came to Zhao Deng's side and asked, "What's the situation now?" Zhao Deng immediately replied, "The Zergs are wreaking havoc in Sinai City. The Zerg King has appeared. Under the eldest prince's orders, I led the Black Jade army to resist. Now, our Sinai City has suffered heavy losses. The death toll has exceeded 1 million. Angel's face suddenly turned ugly when she heard Zhao Deng's answer. She could not help but shout angrily, "Damn Zerg!" Zhao Deng was a little surprised when he heard Angel's angry shout. Could it be that the Zergs were created by the Sacred Ones? Sacred Ones? Zerg! Angel snorted. Other than those filthy insectoids, who else can produce so many insectoids? Zhao Deng was puzzled. Zhao Deng did not understand. But he did not understand why. However, Zhao Deng didn't have the time to think about these problems because the furious Bug King had stood up and let out an angry roar at everyone. The Insect King roared and opened its mouth to spit out dense dark green mucus like raindrops. It emitted a fishy smell and instantly turned the air into a faint green color. Seeing this, everyone quickly dodged. Those who could not dodge in time were corroded and melted by the mucus. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared without a trace. Everyone was horrified when they saw how corrosive the mucus was. They quickly retreated. However, the Zergs had already surrounded them from behind. They did not want to let them retreat. Black Jade Army break through. Under Zhao Deng's command, the Black Jade Army quickly assembled into an arrow formation and charged towards the Zerg swarm. Although the Black Jade Army was no match for the Zerg King, it was not a problem for them to deal with the Zerg swarm. Under the Black Jade Army's charge, a gap quickly appeared in the Zerg swarm's blockade, giving everyone a chance to rush out. However, at this moment, the sky above everyone's head suddenly darkened. When everyone subconsciously looked up at the sky, what they saw was not the sky, but the Zerg King's huge body. Whoosh! The Zerg King moved from top to bottom. It waved its sharp insect legs and swept through the Black Jade Army like a Grim Reaper's scythe. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of Black Jade Army soldiers were killed by this move. However, this was only the beginning. The Zerg King flapped its wings and created a gust of wind, forcing everyone to slow down. Then, it waved its insect legs and began to harvest the lives of the Black Jade Army soldiers. Faced with the Zerg King's shameless fighting style, the Black Jade Army could not break out of the Zerg King's blockade even if they used all their strength. As soul formation cultivators, this was the first time they felt so small and powerless. Although this Zerg King doesn't know any spells, its body is too strong. Even I have a hard time stabilizing my body from the gust of wind created by its wings, let alone the others. Angel looked at the Zerg King's huge body in the sky with a gloomy expression. If they couldn't think of a way to break out of the Zerg King's blockade, then none of them would be able to escape. They would all die under the Zerg King's insect legs. Angel couldn't help but look at Qin Chuan. She hoped that Qin Chuan could stand up and lead everyone to break out of the encirclement. However, when she saw Qin Chuan's pale face, she couldn't say the words that were on the tip of her tongue. Earlier, when they were buried underground, in order to break through the seal of the mucus, Qin Chuan had already done his best. If she were to throw this problem to Qin Chuan now, she would be too irresponsible. I'm a Dongshu stage cultivator. Qin Chuan is only a soul formation stage cultivator. How can I be so irresponsible and push everything to him? Angel clenched her teeth and said to Jean Li, "Take care of Qin Chuan." Jean Li looked at Angel with surprise and asked, "What do you want to do?" Angel looked deeply at Jean Li and said in a deep voice, "It's my duty to protect the Sign Na star system." At this moment, although only a short minute had passed, more than 1,000 Black Jade army soldiers had died under the Zerg King's insect legs. This number was still rising. Just when everyone was about to give up in despair, an extremely shocking aura appeared in the gust of wind. It was like a dazzling star rushing towards the Zerg King in the sky. "Burn my soul and kill my enemy." Angel stared at the Zerg King in the sky. The halo of spiritual energy around her fluctuated wildly. This time, she didn't need to be the one hiding in the back. She wanted to rush in front of everyone and protect everyone in the world. Chapter 9:20. Angel. Jean Li watched as Angel charged at the Insect King without hesitation. She couldn't help but reveal a look of shock. She didn't think that Angel would burn her life force, and even her soul in exchange for more power, to fight the Insect King. "You'll die, Angel," Jean Li shouted, but Angel could no longer hear her. Even if she heard her, Angel would not turn around. She would do everything she could to defend the glory of the same galaxy, even if it meant sacrificing her life, just like her husband. Boom! The wind dissipated wherever Angel went. She held a golden longsword and stabbed it at the Bug King's abdomen. The powerful sword aura pierced through the sky and stabbed the Bug King's abdomen. Roar! The Insect King couldn't help but roar as its abdomen was attacked. It turned to look at Angel, and its hundreds of compound eyes were filled with bloodthirsty, killing intent. However, Angel wasn't afraid at all. She stabbed out with her sword again. Kill! Following Angel's furious roar, the sharp sword energy finally pierced through the Bug King's abdomen and penetrated deep into its body. Large amounts of filthy blood splattered everywhere, dyeing the sky a dark green color. Seeing that the Bug King was injured, Angel roared again and appeared in front of the Bug King in a flash. She raised her sword and stabbed at the Bug King's compound eyes. Slash! Angel poured all the spiritual energy in her body into the longsword in her hand. The surging power made the longsword unable to bear the burden and burst out with a buzzing sound. However, Angel could not care less. Even if she risked the destruction of her natal Tao artifact, she had to swing her sword and severely injure the Insect King. The sword light swept across the sky, turning the sky into a dazzling silver-white color. Huff, huff! Angel panted heavily as she stared straight ahead. She could not help but have a strange look flash through her eyes when she saw the deep slash on the Insect King's compound eyes. Is it dead? The Bug King's aura was already weak and dispirited. It was like an old man with one foot in the grave that could pass away at any time. At this moment, everyone's eyes were focused on Angel and the Bug King. Their eyes were filled with nervousness and anticipation. The Bug King's life was related to the future of Sane City and even the Sane Galaxy. They had to be concerned. Angel heaved a sigh of relief. As long as the Zerg King was dead, the remaining Zergs wouldn't be a problem. As soon as this thought popped up in Angel's mind, the Zergs that were hovering in the vicinity suddenly charged at the Zerg King as though they had gone mad. 1. The swarm of insects spread their wings and flew towards the Insect King. They covered the sky and wrapped around the Insect King layer by layer, forming a huge sphere. Angel looked at the scene in front of her with a face full of shock. She had no idea what these insects were trying to do. No matter what you want to do, I will kill you today. Angel let out a low roar and once again gathered the spiritual energy in her body. However, at this moment, she felt a burst of dizziness and a strong sense of weakness gushed out from her body. This was the after effect of burning her life force and soul in exchange for power. Although it wasn't strong yet, at this critical moment, it was enough to ruin Angel's overall plan. Just as Angel was trying her best to adjust her condition, the sphere formed by the swarm of insects suddenly began to wriggle slowly. The wriggling speed became faster and faster, and the sphere gradually began to shrink. At the same time, the Insect King's aura, which was so weak that it had almost disappeared, began to slowly grow. The Zergs are reviving the Bug King. At this moment, everyone realized this, and their expressions became extremely ugly. It wasn't easy for Angel to severely injure the Bug King and bring it to the brink of death. If the Zergs revived the Bug King, all of Angel's previous efforts and sacrifices would be in vain. What others could think of, Angel could also think of, but she was powerless in the face of all this. The weakness caused by burning her life force and soul deeply troubled her. Now, she didn't even have the strength to lift her sword. If she wanted to recover, it would take at least half a day. If she really waited until then, Saint City would have been destroyed. Now, if she wanted to turn the situation around, there was only one way to go, and that was to completely burn her life force and soul in exchange for great power at the cost of an irreversible sacrifice. Once she did that, no matter what the result of this battle was, she would definitely die. Angel couldn't help but think of the words that her husband, Duke Andro, had said to her that had a great impact on her. She looked at the Zergs in front of her, and a touch of determination flashed in her eyes. She whispered, "I may die, but my spirit lives on. Burn for me." Angel roared at the sky. She burned all of her life force and soul without caring about anything else. The surging power poured out like a flood from an open dam, forming an extremely terrifying vortex of spiritual energy around her. It gathered the spiritual energy within 1,000 miles and formed a huge silver sword in the air, slashing at the Zergs. The moment the silver sword fell, the swarm of insects felt the arrival of danger. They couldn't help but speed up the process of reviving the Insect King. All the flying insects spontaneously bit off each other's necks, causing streams of dark green blood to flow out. The blood flowed through the gaps to the Insect King, wildly replenishing the Insect King's life force. Buzz! The mighty longsword swept across the sky and slashed directly at the sphere formed by the swarm of insects. In the blink of an eye, countless insects were turned into ashes. A terrifying force swept out in all directions, causing everyone to involuntarily fly backward. Rumble! The sword chi slashed open the sphere and continued to slash into the ground, leaving a bottomless sword mark that was hundreds of thousands of meters long on the ground. The entire planet shook violently. In the distance, everyone looked at the terrifying sword mark in front of them, and their faces involuntarily revealed a touch of shock. This was the full power of an almighty Dongshu stage attack, so powerful that it could leave an indelible mark on a planet. However, after slashing out with this sword, how long would Angel be able to live? Thinking of this, everyone couldn't help but look at Angel in the distant sky. However, very quickly, everyone's eyes were attracted by the two halves of the Zergs. Streams of viscous dark green liquid flowed out from the two halves of the Zergs and gathered in the air, trying to pull the two halves together. Hiss! Seeing this scene, everyone couldn't help but gasp. Angel had burned all of her life force and soul, but she still couldn't kill the Bug King. Chapter 9:21. The Bug King was not dead, it was still alive. When she realized this, Angel could not help but feel a deep sense of helplessness. Despair flashed across her eyes. She had tried her best, risked everything, but she still could not become the savior of Sinai City. She still could not kill the Insect King. How could this be? Angel could not accept this fact. Odyssey the Great was now Zerg's prisoner. She was not far from death. There were no Dongshu stage cultivators in Sinai City. No one could continue to stop the Bug King. Everything was going in the worst direction. Gurgle gurgle. Just as Angel's mind was in a mess, the two hemispheres were slowly closing under the efforts of the dark green slime. The Bug King's aura showed signs of recovery again. At this time, if someone could stand up and give the Bug King another fatal blow, they would definitely be able to kill the Bug King. But at this time, there was no one who could stand up. Cough, cough. Angel opened her mouth and coughed out a mouthful of blood. Her face had begun to age rapidly. Her body was showing signs of weakness. She could feel her remaining life force rapidly fading away, and her soul was also being annihilated. She saw the arrival of death, but could not hear the cheers of the survivors of Sinai City. It's really such a pity. Whoosh. Angel's body fell to the ground. She had lost the ability to fly and all her strength. Thud. Just when Angel thought her body would fall to the ground and shatter into pieces, a figure suddenly appeared by her side and took her into his arms. They quickly retreated into the distance and finally landed on the top floor of a tall building. Angel looked at Chinchuan's face that was so close to hers. She asked curiously, "Why didn't you run away?" "Why would I run away?" Chinchuan laughed. "This big guy is still alive." Angel was slightly taken aback by Chinchuan's words. She asked, "Do you want to fight it?" "Give up. You're no match for it." Even she, who was at the Dongshu stage, could not get rid of the Insect King by burning all her life force and soul. What could Chinchuan, who was only at the semi-god stage, do? Even if Chinchuan was from the Divine Dragon clan, it was useless. In the face of absolute power, everything else was fake. Whether I'm a match for it or not, we'll only know after we fight. Chinchuan glanced at Angel. "I know you won't live for long. I hope you can watch me kill this big guy with your own eyes before you die in peace. Although it's strange to say this, it's from the bottom of my heart." As he spoke, Chinchuan gently placed Angel on the ground. Then, he stood up and said to Angel, "Well then, I'm going to start my performance." Angel looked at Chinchuan's back with a complicated expression and said softly, "You must not die." The dark green mucus wriggled slowly and constantly made gurgling sounds. As the two hemispheres merged together, the scalp-numbing sound finally disappeared. However, it was followed by endless fear, because no one knew when the Insect King would attack again and reap their lives one by one. Just as everyone was feeling despair, Chinchuan's figure slowly appeared in front of the sphere. He looked at the dark green mucus that had merged the two hemispheres together, and a trace of disgust flashed through his eyes. He said in a low voice, "What a disgusting and disgusting race." As he spoke, Chinchuan took out a talisman pen and started to inscribe a talisman array in the air. He was very serious, and his movements were very slow. It was as if everything in the outside world had nothing to do with him. In next to no time, Chinchuan's actions drew the attention of everyone. No one had imagined that right when they were about to flee for their lives, there would actually be someone that stood out to face the Insect King head-on. Moreover, it was that young talisman formation master that was renowned a few days ago. He wants to inscribe a talisman array and use it to fight the Insect King. Zhao Deng frowned slightly when he saw Chinchuan's actions. To be honest, he didn't think that a young 5th-grade talisman array master like Chinchuan could inscribe a powerful talisman array. In the face of a terrifying existence like the Insect King, only an almighty cultivator at the late Dongshu stage could possibly defeat it. And it had been too many years since an almighty cultivator at the late Dongshu stage had appeared in the Sinai galaxy. Although everyone was pessimistic, they still had a trace of hope for Chinchuan. This was because at this moment, they really had no other choice but to place their hopes on Qinchuan, who dared to face the Insect King directly. The Insect King needed a certain amount of time to revive, and Qinchuan needed a certain amount of time to inscribe a talisman array. At this moment, both sides were relatively calm and rational. However, once one side achieved their goal first, they would immediately launch an attack and deal a fatal blow to the other side. Therefore, both the Insect King and Qinchuan were racing against time to achieve their goals before the other side. You have to succeed. Qinchuan's face was expressionless, but his heart was roaring crazily. He couldn't afford to make any mistakes in the talisman array he was inscribing right now, because he knew that the Insect King would never give him another chance. Therefore, if he failed, he would have to choose between running for his life or putting his life on the line. Whether it was running for his life or putting his life on the line, it wasn't the best choice for Qinchuan. Sizzle. All of a sudden, the dark green mucus on the sphere began to shrink rapidly and rushed into the sphere. Seeing this, Qinchuan's eyes couldn't help but turn serious. The Insect King's resurrection had reached the final stage. Similarly, the talisman array he was inscribing was also at the final critical stage. He only needed a little more time to succeed. At this moment, the crowd in the distance had also noticed the strange atmosphere between Qinchuan and the Insect King. They were so nervous that they were sweating for Qinchuan. They wanted to cheer for Qinchuan, but they were afraid that they would disturb Qinchuan from inscribing the talisman array. All of them were red in the face and extremely uneasy. Kacha, kacha. Along with a crisp cracking sound, the sphere began to crack bit by bit. The insects that had lost their lives in blood were easily torn apart like thin paper. They turned into pieces and fell to the ground. At the same time, the Insect King's brand new body reappeared in front of everyone. When the Insect King reappeared, everyone's heart was in complete despair. Qinchuan's talisman array had not been successfully inscribed, but the Insect King had already been resurrected. Roar! The Insect King roared at the sky and then suddenly swung its sharp insect leg at Qinchuan. Just as its leg was about to tear Qinchuan's body apart, everything suddenly stopped. Chapter 922. At this critical moment, Qinchuan finally completed the last stroke, successfully inscribing and activating the rune array, sound sealing array. Following Qinchuan's furious roar, the rune array in front of him suddenly released a sound wave that surged towards the Insect King. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a huge net that enveloped the Insect King and restricted all of its movements. Qinchuan raised his head and looked at the Insect King's leg that was less than 10 meters away from his head. A drop of cold sweat ran down his forehead. If he had been a little slower, he might have really become a ghost under the Insect King's leg. While feeling emotional, Qinchuan was very glad. He was glad that not only did he successfully inscribe the sound sealing array in one go, he was also glad that the sound sealing array also had a powerful sealing effect on the Insect King, enough to restrict all of its movements. In this way, his plan was halfway to success. In the distance, everyone originally thought that Qinchuan would die under the Insect King's attack. However, no one expected that Qinchuan actually withstood the pressure at the crucial moment, successfully inscribing the rune array and sealing the Insect King. Although the Insect King was still alive, at least its movements were restricted. It was not much different from being dead. This also meant that they were only one small step away from success. Boom! The entire Sinai city was in an uproar at this moment. Everyone was cheering excitedly. The Insect King had died because of the Insect King, and the Insect King's movements were restricted by the seal. They were safe now, and there was no need to be afraid. He actually succeeded. Zhao Deng was in disbelief. He really did not expect Qinchuan to be able to seal the Insect King. Could this be the creativity of a rune array master? On the streets of the city, among the crowd, Zhuisisi looked at Qinchuan's figure in the sky with excitement. This was Qinchuan, a young man who was good at creating miracles. Grand Duke, what you couldn't do, Qinchuan did it for you. Sophie said with tears streaming down her face. Tears streamed down Sophie's face. When she saw Angel falling to the ground, she felt like she was about to break down. Fortunately, Qin Chuan appeared and saved Angel, saved her, and saved everyone. Qin Chuan listened to the cheers of the crowd, but there was not much excitement on his face. As long as the Insect King was still alive, the crisis would not be resolved. Others did not know, but he knew that the real source of danger for Sinai City was not the Insect King, but the mysterious black-robed man. I have to find that black-robed man and get rid of him, or the Insect King will be released at any time. Qin Chuan looked around, but did not find any trace of the black-robed man. He thought that the black-robed man would not be able to hold back and show up after the Insect King was sealed, but now it seemed that the black-robed man was more patient than he thought. Or perhaps the black-robed man was plotting something else, and the Insect King was only released by the black-robed man to divert their attention. For a moment, Qin Chuan did not know which idea was right, but this was not the main point. The main point now was how to completely kill the Insect King. Qin Chuan. Zhao Deng came to Qin Chuan's side and looked at the seal in front of him. He asked Qin Chuan, "Are you okay?" Qin Chuan shook his head and said to Zhao Deng, "I'm fine, but I don't know how long this great sound sealing array can last. Try to organize some people to create sounds near the great sound sealing array to provide a steady flow of sealing power." Zhao Deng nodded and said to Qin Chuan, "Don't worry, I will arrange this properly." Qin Chuan looked deeply at Zhao Deng and said, "General Zhao Deng, there's one thing I must tell you. The reason Odyssey did not show up to stop this disaster is because he has become Zerg's prisoner." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Zhao Deng's face didn't reveal any surprise. He let out a long sigh and said to Qin Chuan, "Actually, when the Great Emperor refused to show himself, I already guessed that something had happened to the Great Emperor. Now that I heard you say this, it only confirmed my guess." Qin Chuan pursed his lips and said to Zhao Deng, "This is Zerg's conspiracy against the sane system. The Great Emperor has something they want, but I don't know what it is." "The Great Emperor has something they want?" Zhao Deng seemed to have thought of something and said in a deep voice, "Maybe I know what it is." Whoosh! Sang Na controlled Odyssey's body and quickly flew to a remote corner of Sane City. His figure blended into the shadows and quickly appeared in an underground building in front of the black-robed man. "Ambassador, our plan has failed. The Insect King has been sealed by Qin Chuan." The black-robed man heard Sang Na's words and said faintly, "I already know about this." The Insect King caused such a big commotion that it was hard for the black-robed man not to pay attention to it. He was not surprised that the Insect King was sealed by Qin Chuan. After all, Qin Chuan was a legendary divine dragon. It was not strange for him to have the ability to fight above his rank. "Ambassador, what should we do next?" Sang Na said, "The Insect King has been sealed, and Odyssey's imprisonment has been exposed. I can't go back." Speaking of Odyssey, Sang Na felt a burst of anger. Originally, Odyssey was about to tell him where the thing was, but Qin Chuan's group suddenly appeared and shut Odyssey's mouth. No matter how much he tried to persuade Odyssey, Sang Na couldn't get any response. This really pissed him off. "Then there's no need to go back. Our goal is Odyssey. As long as Odyssey is in our hands, we will be able to get that thing sooner or later. Also, pay close attention to Qin Chuan's every move. Maybe Qin Chuan will learn about the existence of that thing from others." The black-robed man looked deeply at Sang Na. His gaze seemed to penetrate Odyssey's body and look directly at Odyssey's soul. He said in a deep voice, "After getting that thing, I will destroy the entire sane system and turn you humanoid race into slaves. I will banish your soul to the netherworld and torture you for eternity." Asterisk whoosh. Asterisk Qin Chuan's figure flashed and appeared on the roof of the building where Angel was placed. He looked at Angel's slightly closed eyes and slowly took a step forward. He opened his mouth, but didn't say anything. Angel had completely lost his aura of life and had left this world forever. Facing Angel's body, Qin Chuan let out a long sigh and said softly, you burned your life force and soul. You don't even have the chance to reincarnate. You sacrificed everything to protect Sane City. Sane City will always remember your name. Chapter 923. With the Zerg King sealed, the crisis in Sinai City was temporarily resolved. However, when people looked up and saw the gigantic body of the Zerg King in the sky, they could not help but feel a pang of fear. They recalled the fear of being dominated by the bloodthirsty Zergs. As the savior of the sealed Zerg King, Qin quickly received an invitation from the eldest prince, Oberon. Oberon hoped to meet with Qin as soon as possible. Qin did not reject Oberon's invitation, but before that, Qin had other matters to attend to. I'm sorry, I didn't protect Angel well. Qin looked at Sophie, who was hugging Angel's body, with a complicated gaze. He didn't know how to comfort Sophie. You don't have to apologize to me. You've done enough. The Grand Duke's sacrifice was her own choice. It has nothing to do with you. Sophie was a reasonable person. If it were not for Qin, they would all have died. She should be grateful to Qin for saving their lives. At the same time, she should be grateful to Qin for preserving Angel's body so that she would not be smashed to pieces. Angel has left. What do you plan to do next? Qin looked at Sophie and pursed his lips. If there's anything I can help you with, please don't hesitate to ask. I'll do my best to help you. Sophie did not say anything. She placed Angel's body on the bed and took Angel's optical computer from her wrist. As she expected, Angel's optical computer was turned on. There was no need to enter a password. BZZT. With a soft sound, a video appeared on the optical computer. The main character was Angel, who had just left this world. Judging from her old and frail appearance, she must have recorded this video before she died. By the time you see this video, I might already be dead. To be honest, I don't regret any of the choices I've made in the past, so you don't have to feel sorry or sad for my departure. Here, I want to leave my will. Lu Zi will inherit Rose City and the title of Grand Duke. The Steel Rose Troop will be loyal to their new master. Finally, I want to say thank you, Qin. The video ended here. After watching this video, Qin and Sophie fell silent. They looked very sad. From their perspective, Angel was definitely a good friend and superior. Her death was really hard for them to accept. According to Grand Duke Angel's wishes, LVZ will inherit the position of Grand Duke and become the new Grand Duke of Rose City. Our Steel Rose Army will also continue to be loyal to the new Grand Duke in accordance with Grand Duke Angel's will. Sophie looked at Qin and asked, as the person closest to the new Grand Duke, what do you think of this? Qin looked at Sophie deeply and said in a subtle tone, in fact, you also understand the real purpose of Angel leaving this video. From Qin's point of view, Angel had indeed left this video to make arrangements for his funeral. However, he wasn't thinking for LVZ. Instead, he was thinking for the Steel Rose Army and Rose City. On the surface, Lu Zi inherited the title of Grand Duke, became the new master of Rose City, and gained the loyalty of the Steel Rose Troop. It seemed that she had obtained all the benefits, but in fact, this was not the case. With Angel's death, Rose City lost its master, and the Steel Rose Troop would be leaderless. In this special period, some people might not do anything because of Angel's sacrifice, but after a long time, some people would definitely have some ideas about Rose City. At that time, Rose City might be controlled by various forces and be torn apart. This was definitely not what Angel wanted to see. Therefore, Angel chose to entrust Rose City to a reliable person before her death, which was Lu Zi, or Qin, who stood behind Lu Zi. If Angel had directly entrusted Rose City and the Steel Rose Troop to Qin might not have been willing to accept this matter. However, Angel cleverly chose a roundabout tactic and entrusted the responsibility to Lu Zi. As long as Lu Zi was willing to accept this matter, Qin would definitely not leave Rose City and the Steel Rose Troop alone. Without this video, Qin would probably choose to find a new umbrella for Lu Zi. Now, he had to consider Lu Zi's personal wishes. This was Angel's scheme against Qin. which made Qin Chuan somewhat helpless. I understand what Grand Duke Angel means, but we don't want to make things difficult for you. Sophie looked at Qin Chuan with a complicated gaze. The choice is in your hands. Hearing Sophie's words, Qin Chuan let out a long sigh and said to Sophie, since we've already said this, then I'll make my attitude clear. As long as everyone in Rose City, including your Steel Rose Troop, can be absolutely loyal to Lu Zi, I can protect you. But let me put it bluntly. Once you show any signs of disloyalty and I find out, don't blame me for being rude to you. Qin Chuan and Sophie had been in contact for a long time, so he knew Sophie's character better. However, what Sophie could do did not mean that others in Rose City and the Steel Rose Troop could do the same. Therefore, he still had to make some things clear. The ending of the story of the farmer and the snake was not so wonderful. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Sophie took a deep breath and said to Qin Chuan in an extremely serious tone, "Don't worry, we will definitely abide by Grand Duke Angel's wishes and be loyal to the new Grand Duke. Once I find out that anyone has ulterior motives, I will not tolerate it. In that case, I will now issue the first order to you on behalf of the new Grand Duke." Qin Chuan looked at Sophie. The Steel Rose Troop will return to Rose City immediately, surround the new Grand Duke, and listen to the new Grand Duke's orders. After the matters here are settled, I will return to Rose City with the new Grand Duke to deal with the matters in Rose City. Sophie looked at Qin Chuan hesitantly and asked, "Isn't it a little too dangerous for you to stay here alone?" Qin Chuan shook his head and said to Sophie, "I will take care of myself. You don't have to worry about the matters here. You just need to do what I have arranged for you." After solving the problem of Angel's wishes, Sophie left the hotel with Qin Chuan's order and prepared to lead the Steel Rose Troop back to Rose City. Qin Chuan continued to rest in the hotel and prepared to meet Crown Prince Otto early the next morning to see how Otto planned to deal with the next matters. Chapter 924. At 6 o'clock in the morning the next day, Qin Chuan had already finished his night of cultivation and left the Rose Hotel. He first wanted to check on the seal of the Bug King. After making sure that there was no problem with the seal, he headed straight to the Imperial City to meet with the eldest prince, Ao Feng. Ao Feng had already arranged for people to wait for Qin Chuan's arrival. As soon as Qin Chuan appeared outside the Imperial City, someone immediately greeted him and respectfully invited Qin Chuan to the Assembly Hall in the Imperial City. When the guide led Qin Chuan to the Assembly Hall, Ao Feng, who had received the news, had been waiting at the door for a long time. When he saw Qin Chuan, he immediately greeted him and said to Qin Chuan, "Mr. Qin, we finally meet." Qin Chuan looked at the slightly haggard Ao Feng and asked, "Has Prince Ao Feng been waiting for me?" Ao Feng smiled bitterly and said to Qin Chuan, "It's not that I've been waiting for you. It's just that what happened yesterday hasn't been properly solved, so I couldn't sleep." Practitioners were also human. After going through a series of events, they also needed to have a good rest and adjust their state of mind. Yesterday's events could be said to have completely changed Ao Feng's life. It was no wonder that he couldn't adjust his state of mind until now. When I heard the news about my father from General Zhao Deng, I really couldn't accept the reality. In my mind, my father has always been the strongest person in the Sinai Galaxy. He could even be ranked among the best in Tron Nebula. I didn't expect that my father would be schemed against by the Divine Clan. No, it's not the Divine Clan, it's Zerg. When mentioning Zerg, Ao Feng's face revealed a trace of unconcealable hatred. Originally, he respected Zerg's strength and prosperity and was willing to respectfully call him the Divine Clan. But now, Zerg had ruined his family and almost turned Sinai City into a ghost town. He no longer respected Zerg, only deep hatred. Hearing Ao Feng's words, Qin Chuan pursed his lips and asked, "What's your next plan, Prince Ao Feng? Why do you want to meet me?" "Mr. Qin, Sinai City is indebted to you. Don't call me Prince Ao Feng. If you don't mind, you can just call me Ao Feng." Ao Feng led Qin Chuan into the assembly hall and said to Qin Chuan as they walked, "Mr. Qin's meeting today is mainly to solve the Insect King's matter and my father's matter." The assembly hall was empty. Rooms was Feng. Ao Feng said frankly to Qinchuan's matter and asked Qin's questions this. S is this? Qinchuan shook his head and said to Ao Feng, Ao Feng, there's no one else here, so I'll be honest with you. Actually, sealing the Insect King yesterday was just a risky attempt on my part. I didn't think that the sound sealing array would be able to seal the Insect King. This was an unexpected gain. If you want to ask me if I have a good way to get rid of the Insect King, then I can only say sorry, I don't have a way. Hearing Qinchuan's words, Ao Feng's face couldn't help but turn ugly. He looked at Qinchuan and asked, Is there really no way? Qinchuan shook his head once more and spoke with an extremely serious tone. Risking my life to seal the Insect King is already my limit. I'm really unable to completely annihilate the Insect King. Don't forget that I'm only an initial stage soul transformation cultivator. As a 5th grade talisman formation master, I've only grasped 2 5th grade talisman formations. Hearing Qinchuan's explanation, Ao Feng's face couldn't help but reveal a bitter expression. He sighed helplessly and said, We've gone too far. We've pushed everything onto you. You've done enough. If Qinchuan hadn't taken the initiative to mention this matter, Ao Feng would have forgotten about Qinchuan's cultivation level. Qinchuan was an early deity transformation cultivator and a 5th rank talisman array master who had just broken through a few days ago. It really wasn't easy for him to do this. If he still asked Qinchuan to do more, it would really be too much. Seeing the helpless expression on Ao Feng's face, Qinchuan also felt a little helpless. As Zerg's mortal enemy, he wanted to kill the Insect King more than anyone else. However, he really didn't have any other way. One had to know that Angel had paid the price of her life to beat the Insect King to a near-death state. From this, it could be seen how difficult it was to kill the Insect King. However, it's not like we don't have a chance at all. Just as Ao Feng was feeling despair, Qinchuan suddenly gave Ao Feng a new ray of hope. Ao Feng's eyes lit up when he heard Qinchuan's words. He hurriedly asked, What chance? Qinchuan glanced at Ao Feng and said, I told General Zhao Deng before that the reason why Zerg targeted Sinai City was that the Great Emperor had something they wanted. If we can find that thing, perhaps we can use it to deal with Zerg. Ao Feng's expression changed slightly when he heard Qinchuan's words. He asked, What is that thing? Qinchuan shook his head and replied, I don't know, but General Zhao Deng once said that he might know what that thing is. Before Qinchuan finished speaking, Zhao Deng's voice suddenly came from outside the meeting hall. Zhao Deng requests an audience with the first prince, Mr. Qin. Ao Feng immediately waved his hand and ordered the door to the meeting hall to open. At the same time, he said to the outside, General Zhao Deng, please come in. Zhao Deng walked through the door and through the corridor to the meeting hall. He looked at Ao Feng and cupped his hands. Greetings, First Prince. General Zhao Deng, there's no need to be so formal. Ao Feng looked at Zhao Deng and asked impatiently, I heard from Mr. Qin that General Zhao Deng knows why Zerg is here. Zhao Deng nodded, then shook his head and replied, I don't know what that thing is, but I can make a rough guess. Hearing Zhao Deng's words, Ao Feng immediately asked impatiently, Then tell me quickly. Qinchuan also showed a hint of curiosity on his face. He also wanted to know what Zerg was trying to get by making such a big commotion. Zhao Deng organized his words and said to the two, About 120 years ago, I accompanied the Emperor to Tron Nebula as his personal guard. On the way back, we encountered a void storm and got separated in the void storm. Later, when we reunited, I noticed that the Emperor's mood was a little strange. He seemed to be overly excited. At that time, I didn't think that there was anything wrong with it. I just thought that he was happy to have survived a disaster. After returning to the same galaxy, the Emperor rarely showed himself outside and began to live in seclusion. It seemed like he was studying something. Now that I think about it, the Emperor must have accidentally obtained something in the void storm, so he changed his normal behavior. Chapter 925. After hearing Zhao Deng's explanation, Qin couldn't help but frown slightly. According to Zhao Deng, Odysseus obtained something 120 years ago, which was why he was targeted by Zerg. However, Zhao Deng's explanation was too general. They still didn't know what that thing was. General Zhao Deng, your explanation is too general. Ao Feng frowned and looked at Zhao Deng. He asked, can you be more specific? We have no way of finding that thing. Now, they only knew that such a thing had happened, but they still didn't know what Odysseus had obtained or where he had put it. The situation now was basically the same as before Zhao Deng told them about this matter. Facing Qin and Ao Feng's confusion, Zhao Deng asked, I wonder if your highness and Mr. Qin have heard of the rumors about the void storm? Hearing Zhao Deng's words, Qin was confused. He had only been in this world for a few months. It was the first time he had heard of the void storm, let alone the rumors about it. As for Ao Feng, he was also confused. However, it wasn't because he didn't know about the rumors about the void storm. It was just that there were too many rumors about the void storm, and he didn't know which one Zhao Deng was talking about. Seeing that Qin and Ao Feng didn't know, Zhao Deng didn't beat around the bush. He directly said to the two of them, 2,000 years ago, the legendary Overlord Bela. Do you know the story? Hearing Zhao Deng's words, Qin was still confused, but Ao Feng's face showed a touch of shock. He exclaimed, you mean the rune stone? Zhao Deng nodded and said to the two of them in a very serious tone. At that time, Bela was just an ordinary apotheosis stage cultivator. However, because she obtained a rune stone in a void storm, she became an overlord in less than 100 years. Hearing Zhao Deng's explanation, Qin couldn't help but show a touch of surprise. However, it wasn't because of Zhao Deng's words, but because after Zhao Deng said that, the rune sword in his mind suddenly reacted. Could it be that the rune stone is helpful in repairing the rune sword? Qin was curious. He directly asked the rune sword in his mind, do you need the rune stone? After hearing Qin's words, the rune sword gave an affirmative answer. It needed the rune stone even more than it needed Dao runes. After receiving the runic sword's answer, Qin's expression immediately became serious. He never thought that the runic stone would be more important to the runic sword than a Dao rune. Since that was the case, he had to find a way to obtain the runic stone. What is this rune stone? Before getting the rune stone, Qin first had to figure out what the rune stone was and what its effects were. Hearing Qin's question, Zhao Deng and Ao Feng were slightly stunned. They didn't expect Qin to ask such a question. However, now wasn't the time to think about it. Ao Feng directly explained to Qin. Countless years ago, before the human race and the demon race disappeared, the origin of the rune power, the runic land, suddenly shattered. Countless stone pillars with runes inscribed on them shattered and turned into fragments that flew all over the universe. After thousands of years of evolution, those stone pillars with runes inscribed on them became the rune stone of today. After hearing Ao Feng's explanation, Qin was slightly stunned. He didn't expect the origin of the rune stone to be related to the runic land. No wonder the rune sword needed the rune stone so urgently. After all, he had witnessed the entire process of the runic land shattering with his own eyes. It could be said that he was one of the people who understood this matter the best. We don't know what kind of magical power the rune stone has, but back then, Bela did indeed rely on the rune stone obtained from the void storm to become the overlord of the universe. Zhao Deng said to Qin, other than the rune stone, I really can't think of anything else in the Emperor's possession that would make Zerg go to such lengths. Ao Feng took a deep look at Zhao Deng and said in a deep voice, if that's the case, perhaps Father really did obtain a rune stone from the void storm. But after 100 years of research, he couldn't discover any secrets from it. Instead, the insectoids got hold of this secret information and lured the insectoids to covet it. Hearing Ao Feng's words, Qin and Zhao Deng both agreed. They couldn't think of a better reason. In other words, Zerg captured the Emperor and didn't kill him because he wanted to learn the whereabouts of the rune stone from him. Zhao Deng said in a deep voice, We have to find the rune stone before they do. Now that the insectoids have become so unscrupulous, if they were allowed to obtain more rune stones, the insectoids would be even more ruthless, and the entire Sane Star system would cease to exist. Even with Zerg's status as one of the top 10 ancient races, they only have a few dozen overlords. The rune stone is too tempting for those who are only one step away from becoming an overlord. Ao Feng said in a complicated tone, "Once you become an overlord, you can do whatever you want in the universe. You can even face the top 10 ancient races without fear. With such an opportunity in front of you, who would be able to resist the temptation?" Hearing Ao Feng's words, Qin Chuan nodded and agreed. "You're right. And I'm sure that Zerg has already sent people to keep an eye on us. They must be hoping that we can find where the rune stone is hidden and use us to get it." While speaking, Qin Chuan looked at Zhao Deng and asked, "Can you guess where the Emperor hid the rune stone?" Zhao Deng frowned slightly and said in a low voice, "The safest place in Sane City is definitely the Royal Palace, and the safest place in the Royal Palace is definitely the Underground Palace." Since Zerg captured the Emperor, he must have gone to the Underground Palace to check it out. The rune stone shouldn't be in the Underground Palace. Ao Feng frowned when he heard Zhao Deng's analysis. The two of them were the closest people to the Great Emperor and also the ones who understood the Great Emperor the best. If the Great Emperor didn't hide the stone in the Underground Palace, where could he have hidden it? Qin Chuan pondered for a moment and said to the two of them, "Zerg should have started setting up in Sane City 100 years ago. The capture of the Emperor should have happened not long ago. Where did the Emperor go before this? Since the rune stone wasn't hidden in the royal palace, it must be hidden outside. As long as they knew Odysseus' whereabouts in the past, they would be able to deduce the location of the rune stone." After receiving Qin Chuan's hint, Ao Feng and Zhao Deng looked at each other and said in unison, "The Blizzard Palace." Chapter 926. Blizzard Palace. When he heard Ao Feng and Zhao Deng say this place in unison, Qin Chuan couldn't help but feel excited. He couldn't wait to ask, "Where is the Blizzard Palace?" Hearing Qin Chuan's question, Ao Feng explained to Qin Chuan, "The Blizzard Palace is a palace of the Great Emperor in Blizzard City. It got its name because of the perennial snow. Usually, the Great Emperor likes to enjoy the snowy scenery in the Blizzard Palace. Not long ago, the Great Emperor went to the Blizzard Palace once. It is very likely that the Great Emperor hid the rune stone there." Speaking up to here, Ao Feng seemed to have thought of something. His expression suddenly changed, and he said in an extremely low voice, "I remember now. Just 2 months ago, Ao Du went to the Blizzard Palace and hasn't returned since." Hearing Ao Feng's words, Zhao Deng's face suddenly changed. He cried out involuntarily. Could it be that the second prince already knew about the existence of the rune stone and that it was hidden in the Blizzard Palace? Hearing this, Qin Chuan was somewhat puzzled and asked, "What are you talking about? What second prince?" Ao Feng's face was gloomy. He looked at Qin Chuan and said, "The second prince is Otto, my younger brother. He and I are both strong competitors for the position of crown prince. In the past, he always stayed by father's side and almost never left the imperial city. 2 months ago, he suddenly left the imperial city and went to the Blizzard Palace. At that time, I was wondering why he went there, but I didn't pay too much attention to it. Now that I think about it, he must have known something. So he suddenly went to the Blizzard Palace." Hearing Ao Feng's words, Qin Chuan's face became a little ugly. If the second Prince Otto had already known about the rune stone 2 months ago, maybe he had already gotten it. "We must go to the Blizzard Palace as soon as possible," Zhao Deng said to the two. "If we continue to delay, I'm afraid that things will be really bad. Yes, we must set off immediately." Ao Feng also had the same idea. He looked at Qin Chuan and said, "I even suspect that the one who betrayed father is Otto." Qin Chuan looked deeply at Ao Feng and said, "You mean that Otto sold the information of the rune stone to Zerg and used Zerg power to control the Great Emperor and create an opportunity for him to get the rune stone?" A.O. Feng nodded. He took a deep breath and said to Qin Chuan, I know that my word will make you think that I'm framing Otto and that I'm trying to kick him out of the game. But I'm not saying this without evidence. General Zhao Ding, you know what kind of person Otto is. He would definitely do something as treacherous as this. The Crown Prince is right. The second prince has always been a selfish person. If he didn't want to become the Crown Prince, he wouldn't have tried so hard to please the great emperor. He does everything with a purpose. If he knew where the rune stone is, he would definitely do everything he can to get it. And the great emperor is his stumbling block. It's not strange for him to secretly leak information about using Zerg's power to control the great emperor. Zhao Ding said to Qin Chuan, now that Sinai City's survival has become a problem, there's no need for the Crown Prince to do something so despicable. Hearing A.O. Feng and Zhao Deng's words, Qin Chuan nodded slightly and said to the two of them, if that's the case, let's not waste any more time. We'll head to the Blizzard Palace now. But before that, we need to consider one thing. Will our actions attract Zerg's attention? If Qin Chuan was Zerg, he would definitely send people to keep an eye on the people who might know where the runestone was. If they took action now, Zerg would definitely know what they were doing, which would add more variables to their trip to the Blizzard Palace. Mr. Qin is right, but we can't give up eating for fear of choking. We have to go to the Blizzard Palace no matter what. A.O. Feng said helplessly, even if Zerg is following us, we still have to take action. It didn't matter if the insectoids or Otto obtained the runestone. It wasn't a good thing for them. They didn't have a better choice. In the darkness, the black-robed man was sitting on a futon, quietly practicing his daily practice. Suddenly, there was a sound of light footsteps behind him, and then a figure appeared behind him. Ambassador, those people are on the move. They are preparing to leave Sinai City on a spaceship. Their destination is not clear yet. Hearing the report, the black-robed man slowly opened his eyes and stood up. He said indifferently, get ready to go. Follow them closely. Yes. The person responded respectfully and then stepped back, gradually disappearing into the darkness. The black-robed man slowly stretched out his right hand and looked at the golden beetle sleeping in his palm. He whispered, Anders, our plan is finally going to reach the final step. We will become the new overlords of the universe. Don't you think so? The golden beetle called Anders gently twisted its body, as if responding to the black-robed man, or as if it was unconscious in its sleep. Port, Qin Chuan and the other two boarded the spaceship and left Sinai City. However, their destination was not Snow City, but Earth City, which was in the opposite direction of Snow City. Qin Chuan stood by the porthole and looked out at the starry sky. He whispered, where else can we get the runestone other than the Void Storm? Hearing Qin Chuan's question, A.O. Feng shook his head and said, to be honest, no one knows. As far as I know, there have been 7 runestones in the universe. 6 of them were found in the human ruins, and the last one was found in the Void Storm. If there is really a runestone in Snow Palace, then this will be the second one found in the Void Storm. Qin Chuan heard this and asked curiously, where is the human ruins? Don't think about it. It's not a place we can go. A.O. Feng said to Qin Chuan, when the human race and the demon race disappeared, the places they occupied were divided by the other ancient races. The core area has become a forbidden area that is jointly controlled by all the ancient races. Even the overlords of the universe can't get close to it, let alone us. Hearing A.O. Feng's explanation, Qin Chuan narrowed his eyes and asked, there must be a way to get close to it, right? A.O. Feng looked at Qin Chuan with a subtle expression. After a moment of silence, he said to Qin Chuan, there are ways. The first way is to join the ancient races and become their vassal, using merits to exchange for a chance to enter the ruins. The other way is to become a universe overlord. Only a universe overlord can enter the ruins during the gathering of the ancient races that is held once every 1,000 years. Chapter 927. Hearing A.O. Feng's words, Qin Chuan asked curiously, What is the meeting of the strong races? Ao Feng patiently explained to Qin Chuan. The meeting of the strong races is a meeting organized by the ancient strong races. It is held once every 1,000 years, and the purpose is to gather all the great beings in the universe to explore the ruins of the human race and the demon race, and to find the treasures left behind by the human race and the demon race. Qin Chuan was confused and asked, "The treasures in the ruins of the human race and the demon race are also attractive to universe overlords. If it is just an ordinary ruin, the treasures in it are naturally not attractive to universe overlords. However, the ruins that are explored during the meeting of the strong races are located in the core area of the human race and the demon race. There are countless treasures, and even universe overlords will benefit from them. Of course, it is very attractive." Ao Feng paused for a moment and then continued, "However, this kind of thing is still far away from us. If we want to participate in the meeting of the strong races, we need to be at least a universe overlord at the combination stage or a level 7 charm array master. We are still far away from that." Qin Chuan couldn't help but reveal a subtle expression when he heard Ao Feng's words. Regardless of whether it was the body integration stage or the 7th grade talisman array master, they were both extremely distant existences to him. However, he believed that sooner or later he would be able to reach such heights and become an existence that everyone looked up to. "I found them." At this moment, Zhao Deng walked over slowly with a solemn expression. Although they had already guessed that Zerg would be following them, he still felt a little depressed when he actually faced it. Hearing Zhao Deng's words, Qin Chuan and Ao Feng both turned to look at Zhao Deng and asked in unison, "They are following us?" Zhao Deng nodded and said to the two of them, "There is an unfamiliar spaceship about 7,000 kilometers behind us. It is a model that has never been registered in Sinai City. If I am not mistaken, it should be Zerg's spaceship. If that is the case, then let's get ready to carry out the plan." Qin Chuan looked at the two of them and said, "See you in Snow City." In the starship's command room, the black-robed man sat in the center of the command seat, looking at the silver-gray starship projected on the crystal screen, his eyes filled with indifference. "Emissary, the other party has discovered our whereabouts." A short figure appeared in front of the black-robed man and respectfully reported the current situation. When the black-robed man heard this, he said indifferently, "So be it. They can't do anything. In the face of absolute strength, any struggle is useless." The black-robed man didn't care if their whereabouts were discovered or not. In his opinion, even if Qin Chuan and the others discovered their whereabouts, they wouldn't be able to do anything. In this vast universe, even if they wanted to escape, where could they go? Just as the black-robed man was thinking this, countless tiny white dots of light suddenly appeared on the crystal screen. When he saw these dots of light, the black-robed man's face changed slightly, and he said in a deep voice, "What just happened?" Hearing the black-robed man's words, the subordinate immediately went to investigate and soon came back with a reply. "Emissary, the other party starship suddenly released thousands of escape pods. These escape pods flew in all directions, their destination unknown." When the black-robed man heard the subordinate's report, his face suddenly turned green, and he couldn't help but shout angrily, "Shoot down all the escape pods." "Emissary, the other party's starship is equipped with an anti-lock device, which interferes with our superpower cannons. We can't lock onto those escape pods." The subordinate said helplessly, "Our preparation is not enough." Obviously, the other party came prepared, and they were too passive in following the other party's footsteps. "Bastard!" The black-robed man was furious. He really didn't expect that the other party would play such a trick on him. They were simply toying with him like a monkey, and in such a short time, all the escape pods had disappeared into the vast universe, and they could no longer trace them. In the escape pod, Qin Chuan sat in a narrow seat, looking out of the window subtly. When he was sure that no one was chasing after them, he was relieved, knowing that their plan had succeeded. He would take the escape pod back to Sane City, and then go to Snow City through the starship that Rose City had left in Sane City. As for Ao Feng and Zhao Deng, they naturally had their own way to go to Snow City. Soon, the escape pod returned to Sane City and entered the recovery location that they had arranged in advance. When he left the escape pod, Qingchuan's face had changed from a handsome young man to an ordinary middle-aged man. He quickly left the recovery location and disappeared into the crowd. The next time he appeared was in the starship of Rose City. Qingchuan looked at the intelligence system in front of him, took a deep breath, and said, "Let's go." Destination: Snow City. From Sane City to Snow City by starship, it took about 2 days to pass through 3 interstellar portals. However, it took Qingchuan 3 days to arrive near Snow City. For safety reasons, he changed his starship halfway to make sure that no one was following him. Qingchuan stood at the porthole, gazing into the distance at the blue and white planet in front of him. Snow-blowing city was on this planet, and the snow palace was on the other side of the planet. He couldn't see it from his current perspective. Previously, he had made an appointment with Ao Feng and Zhao Deng to meet in a hotel in Snow City. From the time they separated, they would only wait for 7 days. After 7 days, regardless of whether everyone was present or not, they would set off for Snow Palace. "I hope nothing bad happens to you two," Qingchuan murmured in a low voice. He ordered the starship's intelligence system to enter and land in Snow City. After changing his clothes again, he left the starship and blended into the crowd at the port of Snow City. Soon, he boarded a public shuttle and arrived at the hotel they had agreed to meet in advance. Qingchuan felt lucky that he found Ao Feng and Zhao Deng in the lobby as soon as he entered the hotel. Obviously, they had arrived earlier, but their clothes were rougher. Qingchuan went straight to Ao Feng and Zhao Deng. Looking at their vigilant faces, he smiled and said lightly, "Friends, we agreed to meet in 7 days. You are really early." Hearing Qingchuan's familiar voice, Ao Feng and Zhao Deng's faces suddenly showed joy. They said to Qingchuan, "Your disguise is too perfect. If we didn't hear your voice, we wouldn't even believe that you are a him." Ao Feng shut his mouth in time and did not say Qingchuan's name. Although there was a high probability that Zerg could not keep up with them, it was better to be careful. Chapter 928. There's no time to lose. Let's set off immediately. Now that everyone was here, under the threat of Auto and Zerg, it was better for them to take action as soon as possible and go to the Blizzard Palace to look for runestones. Qingchuan's proposal was unanimously approved by Ao Feng and Zhao Deng. In fact, they were more enthusiastic than Qingchuan, so the three of them immediately set off for the Blizzard Palace after a short rest. The Blizzard Palace is a forbidden area in the Blizzard City. Except for the royal family, no one else is allowed to get close. I guess Auto must have made a lot of arrangements after coming to the Blizzard Palace. If we go there like this, we may fall into the traps set by Auto. So we'd better sneak into the Blizzard Palace. On the way to the Blizzard Palace, Ao Feng had begun to analyze the current situation. For others, sneaking into the Blizzard Palace might be a difficult task, but for him, it was not difficult at all. What Prince Ao Feng said makes sense. We'd better sneak in carefully. Zhao Deng also agreed with Ao Feng's proposal. He looked at Qingchuan and asked, "Mr. Qin, do you have any objections?" Qingchuan shook his head and said to the two, "It's my first time here, so I'm not familiar with everything here. You can arrange it. I'll listen to you." Ao Feng and Zhao Deng had been to the Blizzard Palace many times, and they had royal status, so they could go in and out of the Blizzard Palace unimpeded. As a layman, he only needed to listen to the arrangements. Seeing that Qingchuan had no objections, Ao Feng said, "In that case, we'll enter the Blizzard Palace from the side door. Even if Auto arranged people to guard the side door, I think the side door's defense is the weakest, so it's the easiest to break through." In Ao Feng's view, it was impossible for them to enter the core of the Blizzard Palace without any obstacles, so he had prepared for 2 scenarios. If sneaking in did not work, then they would force their way in. No matter what, they had to get the runestones before everyone else. When the flying shuttle came to a place 1,000 miles away from the Blizzard Palace, it stopped moving forward because if they went any further, they would enter the alert range of the Blizzard Palace guards. They were very likely to be discovered, and at that time, the difficulty of entering the Blizzard Palace would increase exponentially. Qin Chuan and the other two left the shuttle under Ao Feng's lead. They stealthily moved towards the direction of the Blizzard Palace. Along the way, they encountered more than one wave of patrolling guards. Ao Feng and Zhao Deng recognized most of them. These patrolling guards are basically Otto's personal guards, not the original guards of the Blizzard Palace. I guess he must have controlled the original guards of the Blizzard Palace, or even killed them. Looking at those familiar faces, Ao Feng couldn't help but reveal a gloomy expression. It seems that Otto has basically taken complete control of the Blizzard Palace. I can see that Otto is very strict with the access control of the Blizzard Palace. Zhao Deng glanced at the patrolling guards who had just passed by and whispered, "Their patrol route is very tight. If you're not familiar with the Blizzard Palace, it will be very difficult to avoid them. Even we have to be careful." Hearing Ao Feng and Zhao Deng's words, Qin Chuan pursed his lips and said in a low voice, "Since Otto has set up such a tight defense in the Blizzard Palace, it means that the Talisman Stone might really be in the Blizzard Palace. However, it seems that Otto has yet to obtain the Talisman Stone. If Otto had already gotten the Rune Stones, he would have left the Blizzard Palace long ago and gone to a secret place to study the Rune Stones. There was no reason for him to continue to make such a big fuss here." However, Qin Chuan did not rule out the possibility that Otto had deliberately set up a formation here to deceive others. But in Qin Chuan's view, the possibility of such a thing was still very small. "Let's go." The patrolling team had gone far away. They had to take advantage of the gap before the next wave of patrolling team arrived to move forward and enter the Blizzard Palace as soon as possible. After 4 hours of moving forward, Qin Chuan and the other two finally arrived in front of the side gate of the Blizzard Palace. As Ao Feng had expected, the side gate was indeed guarded by guards, but there were not too many of them. There was only a squad of 10 people. "Leave these 10 people to me." Zhao Deng looked around and took the initiative to take care of this squad of 10 people. While speaking, Zhao Deng had already stepped out, exposing his body in front of the squad of 10 people. But before the squad of 10 people could react, Zhao Deng's figure had already split into 10 and appeared in front of the 10 people like lightning. With a raise of his hand, the 10 people were all beheaded. Seeing this scene, Ao Feng explained to Qin Chuan, "This is one of General Zhao Deng's famous consummate skills, the 10 months technique. General Zhao Deng can split into 10 people at the same time. All 10 people are his original body, and all of them have the peak strength of his original body. It's very powerful." Hearing Ao Feng's words, Qin Chuan's eyes moved slightly and asked, "How long can this doppelganger technique last?" Ao Feng chuckled and said to Qin Chuan, "You asked the key question. Although this doppelganger technique is strong, with General Zhao Deng's strength, it can only last for about 3 seconds at most. Moreover, it consumes a lot of spiritual energy, so General Zhao Deng rarely uses this technique. This time, if it weren't for the fact that he wanted to quickly deal with this squad of 10 people, I don't think General Zhao Deng would have used this technique. Come out, the problem is solved." At this moment, while Ao Feng and Qin Chuan were talking, Zhao Deng had already returned to their side. His tone was somewhat complicated as he said, "In fact, they are innocent, but now, in order to not ruin our plan, I can only kill them." As the commander of a troop, Zhao Deng was very clear in his heart that these guards were just following orders from above. They were innocent, but sometimes reality was cruel. Innocent people might not have a good ending. "We all understand you," Ao Feng said to Zhao Deng. "Special times require special treatment." Qin Chuan didn't have any objection to this. He wasn't a kind-hearted Virgin Mary. At this time, being soft-hearted would only leave behind hidden dangers. Killing decisively was the best choice. Ao Feng walked at the front and came to the side door's identity verification area. He revealed his original appearance and easily passed the verification. The Blizzard Palace welcomes the arrival of the first prince. After the verification, a gentle female voice came from the side door to welcome AO Phone. This was the Blizzard Palace's intelligence system, Snowman, responsible for the operation of the entire Blizzard Palace. Snowman, where is second Prince Otto? Reporting to the first prince, second Prince Otto is currently in the Emperor's palace. Do you need me to inform the second prince of your arrival? No need. Keep silent and don't mention my arrival to anyone. Chapter 929. Qingchuan looked curiously at the snowman system in the Blizzard Palace and asked AO Feng, "Won't Otto tamper with the system? How can you be so sure?" AO Feng chuckled and said to Qingchuan, "You don't know, but the snowman is an intelligent system developed by Tianyu Technology Group in the Tarong Star Cluster. It has intelligence not inferior to humans. Unless you have the initial password of the snowman, no one can tamper with it. As far as I know, only Father knows the initial password of the snowman, so it is impossible for Otto to tamper with the snowman. He is the eldest prince, so his authority is one level higher than Otto's. Therefore, as long as I warn the snowman, Otto will not be able to detect our arrival through the snowman." After hearing AO Feng's explanation, Qingchuan's face showed a touch of understanding. No wonder AO Feng was so confident that they could sneak into the Blizzard Palace. It turned out that his authority in the Blizzard Palace was one level higher than Otto's. "I have no questions." Qingchuan looked at AO Feng. "I will listen to you. Then let's go." AO Feng took the lead and walked through the side door, followed by Zhao Deng and Qingchuan. Along the way, under the care of the snowman, they did not encounter any guards. It could be said that they were unimpeded. When they approached the Ziwu Palace, AO Feng introduced the origin of the Tianzi Palace to Qingchuan. The Tianzi Palace is where Father stays in the Blizzard Palace. It is the place with the best scenery in the Blizzard Palace. The reason Otto is there must be because he thinks Father will hide the rune stone in the Tianzi Palace. AO Feng said to the two, "I think he has not found the rune stone yet. Let's go and catch him red-handed." As they spoke, the three had already arrived in front of the Tianzi Palace. Looking at the closed door, AO Feng immediately said to the snowman, "Snowman, open the Tianzi Palace." In the absence of Odysseus, AO Feng had the highest authority in the Blizzard Palace. Therefore, the snowman obediently opened the door of the Tianzi Palace and welcomed Qingchuan and the others in. Who dares to barge into the Emperor's hall? Just as Qingchuan and the other two entered the Hall of Heaven, a roar of shock and anger suddenly came from the Hall of Heaven. A figure quickly appeared at the other end of the corridor. When he saw the faces of Qingchuan and the other two, his expression changed abruptly. He subconsciously wanted to turn around and flee. "Odo, where do you think you're going?" "Snowman, seal him." Following AO Feng's order, the snowman immediately created an invisible wall around Otto, sealing Otto in. "Odo, why are you in Imperial Father's bedroom? What do you want?" AO Feng walked in front of AO Du and looked at the haggard AO Du. His eyes were sharp. Facing AO Feng's cold gaze, AO Du's face gradually became ferocious. He said angrily, "AO Feng, you must have heard the news. That's why you came. Your goal must be to obtain the rune stone. You and I have the same goal, so why do you have to pretend in front of me?" Hearing AO Du's words, AO Feng shouted angrily, "I'm different from you. At least I won't betray my father." "My father? Ha ha, he's your father, not mine." AO Du laughed crazily. "If I'm his son, why doesn't he want to make me the crown prince?" AO Feng said angrily, "Are you going to betray Imperial Father just because of the crown prince?" "Ha ha, that's right, I betrayed him. I'd rather destroy something I can't get than let someone else have it." AO Du looked as if he had gone crazy. His expression was extremely ferocious. Obviously, he didn't think he was wrong at all. In his opinion, it was always others who were wrong. He was always right and righteous. Looking at AO Du's crazy appearance, Qingchuan and Zhao Deng couldn't help but frown. In their eyes, Do was completely crazy and not a normal person at all. He probably hasn't found the rune stone yet. Qin Chuan glanced at Do and said to Feng, "The rune stone should still be here." Rune stone? Ha ha ha. You're really here for the rune stone. I've said it before, if I can't get it, you can also forget about getting it. Do laughed crazily again when he heard Qin Chuan mention the rune stone. At the same time, he took out a black bug out of nowhere and crushed it to death. A large amount of dirty blood gushed out and dyed Do's hand black. Seeing Do's action, Qin Chuan and the other two turned pale with fright. Feng said sternly, "What did you do?" "Ha! I've already sent our location to the divine race. They'll soon come here and snatch the rune stone from your hands." Do laughed crazily and said, "At that time, you'll all die. You'll all be buried with me." Bastard. Feng's face turned ashen when he heard Do's words. He didn't expect Do to do such a thing. Originally, he wanted to spare Do's life, but now it seems that he was too merciful. "Ha ha! Put away your hypocrisy and kill me. Give me a quick death. I'll wait for you in the Nine Nether." Feng couldn't hold back the killing intent in his heart when he heard Do's words. He suddenly stepped forward and waved his hand at Do. However, the powerful spiritual energy fluctuation wasn't enough to break the seals set up by the snowman. Do was lucky enough to escape, and Feng calmed down. "Phew, I was too impulsive. There's no point in killing him now." Feng took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. Then he said to Qin Chuan and Zhao Ding, "We must find a rune stone as soon as possible and leave with it." Although Feng's words were reasonable, Qin Chuan felt that it would be very difficult for them to find a rune stone in a short period of time, since Do hadn't found it in a few months. "Let's give it a try." Zhao Ding didn't have much hope for this, but if they just ran away without doing anything, then the sane galaxy would really be finished. Sinai City, Underground Palace. Emissary, there's news. A figure quickly appeared in front of the black-robed man and said in an extremely excited tone, "The black bug we sent to the mysterious informant was crushed to death. It's located in the Blizzard Palace of the Blizzard City." Hearing the subordinate's report, the black-robed man's face suddenly showed a touch of coldness. He said in a deep voice, "The Blizzard Palace, the place where Odyssey went out recently?" The subordinate immediately said, "Yes, it's there. Odyssey must have hidden the rune stone in the Blizzard Palace. I didn't expect him to have the courage to place the rune stone so far away." The black-robed man said in a cold tone, "Qin Chuan and the others must have gone to the Blizzard Palace after escaping our surveillance in the escape pod. Inform everyone to move immediately and go to the Blizzard Palace." Chapter 9:30. A day had passed, and Qin Chuan and the other two had found nothing in the Emperor's Hall. There was no sign of the rune stone at all. Could it be that the rune stone isn't in the Emperor's Hall? Zhao Deng furrowed his brows as he looked at Qin Chuan and Feng. Do had been searching this place for so long, but he still couldn't find the talisman stone. "We've also searched everywhere, but we still haven't found the talisman stone. Could the talisman stone be hidden somewhere else?" Hearing this, Feng shook his head and replied, "No, the last time my father came to the Snow Palace, I accompanied him. At that time, my father stayed in the Emperor's Palace for a month and never left. If the talisman stone is hidden in the Snow Palace, it must be here. But there is no place to hide the rune stone in the Emperor's Hall. We have even searched the Underground Palace." Zhao Deng frowned. Could it be that there is a secret room in the Emperor's Hall that we don't know about? Thinking of the secret room, Feng summoned the snowman and asked, "Snowman, do you know if there is a special secret room in the Emperor's Hall?" "I'm sorry, Your Highness. You don't have the authority to ask about this," the snowman said to Feng in a flat tone. "Only Odyssey the Great has the authority to ask about this." Feng's expression couldn't help but become a little ugly when he heard the snowman's answer. Although he had already guessed that this would be the result, he still felt a little irritated when faced with the reality. It only took 3 days to travel from Sane City to Snow Palace. They had already wasted a day. If they still couldn't find a rune stone by tomorrow, then they would have to consider retreating. If they continued to stay here, they would only become turtles in a jar. We only have 1 day left. Qingchuan looked at Ao Feng with a slightly dignified gaze. Although the rune stone is important, our lives are more important. Qingchuan wanted to find the rune stone more than anyone else. However, if they waited until Zerg arrived, even if they found the rune stone, it would be taken away by Zerg. At that time, not only would the rune stone be taken away, but their lives would also be taken away. You may be right, but this may be our only chance to obtain the rune stone. Once Zerg obtains the rune stone, Zerg will have nothing to worry about. When that happens, the entire Sane Star system will be plunged into misery and suffering. Ao Feng clenched his teeth and said, "We can survive, but millions of our people will die. The humanoid race will become history." Hearing Ao Feng's words, Zhao Deng's expression became somewhat complicated. Ao Feng's words were right. If they couldn't find a rune stone, they could certainly escape. However, could the other people in the Sinai galaxy escape as well? At that time, Zerg would definitely not let the Sane galaxy go. He would definitely start a massacre in the Sane galaxy. Find a talisman stone. Zhao Deng looked at Ao Feng with determination. He would rather die in the Blizzard Palace than be a coward who abandoned everything and ran for his life. I must find a rune stone. Ao Feng nodded heavily at Zhao Deng. He was the future king of the Sane galaxy. This was his home. He wanted to be the guardian of his home, not a coward who only knew how to run away. Qingchuan saw Ao Feng and Zhao Deng's attitude, and his expression became somewhat complicated. Compared to Ao Feng and Zhao Deng, he did not have any deep feelings for the Sane galaxy. However, he still had many friends in the Sane galaxy. Other than Lu Zi and Bai Yu, he could not just ignore the two sisters, Zhou Sisi and Zhou Lingling. In addition, there was a deep hatred between him and Zerg. It seemed that it would be impossible for him to act wisely and protect himself. Although I think that what you're doing is too radical and risky, I have to admit that I admire you. That's why I've chosen to stay. Qingchuan smiled bitterly. To be honest, I've always been against being a savior, but I've realized that I've always been playing such a role. Qingchuan realized that whether it was when he was in the Banished Land or after he came to the Sane galaxy, he had always done things from the perspective of righteousness. He rarely thought about himself. He had always tried to change this, but it seemed that he could not change it. You're just like the Virgin Mary. Qingchuan sighed helplessly. I wanted to be a tough guy. How did things turn out like this? Upon hearing Qingchuan's words, Ao Feng and Zhao Deng smiled. In fact, they were also worried about whether Qingchuan would stay or leave. Fortunately, Qingchuan had made the same decision as them. However, even if Qingchuan chose to leave, they would not find a problem. After all, this was a voluntary matter. They had no reason or right to force Qingchuan to stay and take risks with them. Qingchuan, you're my best friend from now on. Ao Feng looked at Qingchuan seriously. If we encounter any danger, I'll definitely die before you. Let this old man be the first to die. Zhao Deng chuckled. With such outstanding young talents like you in the Sane galaxy, it will definitely rise again. All right, let's not talk about these useless things. Qingchuan spread his hands. Let's look for the rune stones first. Just as Qingchuan and the other two continued to look for the rune stones, Zerg and the others had already arrived at the outskirts of Blizzard City. The black-robed man sat in the command room and looked at the blue and white planet in front of him. His eyes flashed with coldness as he said in a deep voice, "Pass down the order. Have the 3rd and 4th spaceships stop at the outskirts and stop all spaceships that want to leave Blizzard City. No matter who they are, kill them all." The subordinate immediately responded, "Yes, sir." After the subordinate left, the black-robed man slowly stood up and said to the captain who was controlling the spaceships, "Ignore the ban. Bypass the interstellar port and land directly on top of Blizzard Palace. Kill all who stand in our way." Just as the black-robed man gave the order, a figure slowly walked in from outside. It was Sang Na who was controlling Odyssey's body. "Ambassador, I'm here." Hearing Sang Na's voice, the black-robed man slowly turned around. His gaze pierced through Sang Na's body and went straight to his soul. He said to Odysseus, who was curled up in the corner, "We have arrived at the Blizzard Palace. This is your last chance. Tell me where the rune stone is, and I can guarantee that I will not kill innocent people in the same galaxy." In the face of the black-robed man's ultimatum, Odyssey acted as if he did not hear anything and did not respond. Seeing Odyssey's reaction, the black-robed man could not help but snort coldly and said to Sang Na, "Since he is not willing to say anything, then there is no need to keep him alive. Devour him and let him die." Chapter 9:31. Blizzard Palace, Emperor's Hall. We can't continue to search like headless flies. Qingchuan suddenly turned his gaze to Ao Feng and Zhao Deng not far away. His expression was particularly dignified. Obviously, he didn't want to continue this meaningless search. Hearing Qingchuan's words, Ao Feng looked up at Qingchuan and asked, "Do you have any good suggestions?" In fact, Ao Feng had had enough of this hopeless search. If it wasn't for the heavy responsibility and pressure on his shoulders, he would have given up long ago. 2 days would pass in the blink of an eye if it was used for cultivation. However, 2 days of searching for the rune stone made Ao Feng feel that it was extremely long and torturous. Zhao Deng also looked over. He also wanted to hear Qingchuan's suggestion. The rune stone is definitely not in the Emperor's Hall. We are going in the wrong direction. Qingchuan said in a deep voice, "We have searched the entire Emperor's Hall in less than 2 days. Before that, Otto had been searching here for 2 months. He had searched the Emperor's Hall at least 10 times. Under such intensive searching, we still couldn't find the rune stone. This means that the rune stone is really not in the Emperor's Hall. We have to shift our gaze in another direction." Hearing Qingchuan's words, Ao Feng asked, "Then where do you think we should look?" As I said before, Father didn't go anywhere other than the Emperor's Hall. In fact, Ao Feng also suspected that the talisman stone was hidden in the Emperor's palace. However, he still believed that the talisman stone was hidden in the Emperor's palace because the Wind Snow Palace was too big. If they shifted their attention to other places, they wouldn't know where to go. Zhao Deng nodded in agreement when he heard Ao Feng's words. The Blizzard Palace is huge, but the rune stone is very small. Where should we look for it? Qingchuan shook his head and said to the two, "I think we have fallen into a misunderstanding. Why must the rune stone be hidden in the Blizzard Palace? Why must it be in the Emperor's Hall?" Hearing Qingchuan's words, Ao Feng and Zhao Deng were stunned for a moment. They asked in astonishment, "What do you mean?" Qingchuan took a deep breath and said to the two, "First of all, the Great Emperor has the highest authority among the snowmen. If the Great Emperor went somewhere and told the snowmen not to tell anyone, then how can you know the Great Emperor's whereabouts? Do you think that the Great Emperor has always been in the Hall of Heaven's Sun?" After hearing Qingchuan's explanation, Ao Feng and Zhao Deng's faces were filled with surprise. Obviously, before Qingchuan mentioned this matter, they hadn't thought about it at all. According to Qingchuan's understanding, this kind of thing wasn't impossible. After all, they couldn't keep watch outside the Emperor's palace. Moreover, with Odysseus's strength, if he wanted to quietly leave the Emperor's palace, they wouldn't be able to detect him at all. If that's the case, we've been completely misled. Ao Feng's face turned ugly. But other than the Emperor's Hall, where else can we find the rune stone? The Blizzard Palace covered a huge area. It was half the size of a planet. If they had to search inch by inch, they might not be able to search the entire Blizzard Palace, even if they had a year. Now, they had less than a day left. You said that the Emperor's Hall is the place with the best scenery in the Blizzard Palace. Qingchuan slowly walked to the huge floor-to-ceiling window and looked at the snowy mountain outside. His eyes scanned the entire mountain bit by bit and finally fell on the top of the mountain. Hearing Qingchuan's words and seeing Qingchuan's actions, Ao Feng and Zhao Deng subconsciously looked at the snowy mountain outside the floor-to-ceiling window. Their faces revealed a touch of astonishment. You mean the rune stone might be hidden in the snowy mountain? Ao Feng looked at Qin Chuan in disbelief and asked, "How did you think of this?" Qin Chuan shook his head slightly and said to Ao Feng, "I just think that the rune stone might be hidden in a place that can be accessed from the Emperor's Hall. That snowy mountain is just a suspect. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. We have less than a day left. We have to take a gamble." Qin Chuan's guess is not unreasonable. "We can get a try," Zhao Deng said in a deep voice. "No matter if it's right or wrong, we have to take a gamble. If that's the case, then we—" Ao Feng wanted to say something, but he suddenly stopped halfway. His eyes were fixed on the spaceship that suddenly appeared outside the window. The expression on his face was extremely strange. "It looks like we don't have a chance anymore." Qin Chuan looked at the spaceship outside the window and said in a deep voice, "Zerg is here." The spaceship's cabin door slowly opened, and dozens of black-robed figures walked out. Their bodies emitted a dangerous aura, and the one walking at the front was an old acquaintance of Qin Chuan. It was the black-robed man who also had the sacred beetle. "It wasn't easy to find you guys." The black-robed man's gaze seemed to be able to penetrate the Blizzard Palace's barrier and landed on Qin Chuan. For the black-robed man, Ao Feng and Zhao Deng were insignificant characters that he did not need to pay attention to. Only Qin Chuan, who had once injured him, was worth paying attention to. Facing the black-robed man's gaze, Qin Chuan looked deeply at the black-robed man and said to Ao Feng and Zhao Deng, "His target is me. The two of you better leave immediately and continue looking for the rune stone. If you can find a rune stone, we might still have a chance to live. If not, then think of your last words in advance." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Ao Feng's expression changed slightly. He asked, "You plan to stop him alone?" Qin Chuan nodded and replied, "This is our best choice right now, but also the most helpless choice." Although Ao Feng and Zhao Deng were both apotheosis stage cultivators, they were only apotheosis stage cultivators. In front of the black-robed man, they might not even be able to withstand a single blow. Staying here would just be cannon fodder. It was better to do something more practical. Zhao Deng opened his mouth to say something, but in the end, he did not say anything. He knew very well that staying here to be loyal was a very stupid thing to do. Even if they had to sacrifice themselves, it had to be meaningful. "Brother, take care." Ao Feng and Zhao Deng no longer hesitated and turned to walk out of the Emperor's palace. Qin Chuan took a deep breath and looked at the black-robed man with a sharp gaze. "I couldn't kill you last time and let you escape. This time, I won't give you a second chance." Chapter 9:32. Why didn't you run away? The black-robed man wasn't surprised to see Ao Feng and Zhao Deng run away. He was curious why Qin Chuan didn't run away with them, but chose to stay. Upon hearing the black-robed man's words, Qin Chuan sneered and replied, "Wasn't what I said clear enough? I didn't run away because I wanted to stay and kill you." Upon hearing Qin Chuan's reply, the black-robed man chuckled and said indifferently, "I really don't know who gave you such confidence. You actually think you have the strength to kill me. Don't tell me you think you can kill me this time, just because you hurt me last time? That's what I think. What do you think?" Qin Chuan gave the black-robed man a deep look. His figure flashed and appeared outside the Emperor's palace. He stood in front of the black-robed man, as if he didn't put the black-robed man in his eyes. "You're only at the divine transformation stage. Even if you're a 5th-level talisman formation master and have the mystical power of the Divine Dragon Clan, it doesn't mean you have the qualifications to look down on us powerful cultivators." The black-robed man looked at Qin Chuan, who faced him fearlessly, and felt insulted. His voice became cold and gloomy. Ever since he became an insightful Emptiness Realm cultivator, this was the first time he was looked down upon like this. Upon hearing the black-robed man's words, Qin Chuan gave him a subtle glance and asked, "How do you know I'm not from the Divine Dragon Clan?" The Divine Dragon Clan has disappeared from the universe for countless years. Even in that place, there might not be any divine dragon clan surviving. I think you must have obtained some inheritance of the divine dragon clan from some ruins. You're just a lucky person. The black-robed man sneered. At first, I also thought you were from the divine dragon clan. However, after thinking about it carefully, you're still very different from the real divine dragon clan. After hearing the black-robed man's explanation, a look of understanding appeared on Qin Chuan's face. He wasn't surprised that the black-robed man would think this way because this was a good thing for him. After all, he didn't want the matter of his identity to become an uproar and let too many people know that he was involved with the Divine Dragon Clan. Since that's the case, you haven't reported anything about me to your superiors, right? Qin Chuan narrowed his eyes slightly. As long as he killed the black-robed man, there would be no one who would expose his identity. Upon hearing Qin Chuan's words, the black-robed man guessed Qin Chuan's thoughts. He chuckled and asked Qin Chuan, "Aren't you stalling for time for those two fellows by telling me so much? Why do I feel that your self-confidence is a little too strong? You're not worthy of me reporting to my superiors. I am indeed stalling for time for them, but I also feel that I have the strength to kill you." Before he finished speaking, Qin Chuan went all out. His aura surged, and he directly released his complete form. His figure flashed and appeared in front of the black-robed man. He raised his hand and punched. His spiritual power suddenly erupted and slammed toward the black-robed man like a stormy sea. With Qin Chuan's current strength, he could easily kill any early-stage Huashan realm cultivator if he went all out. He might even have the strength to fight against a Huashan realm cultivator in the peak Huashan realm. However, the black-robed man was not a Huashan realm cultivator, but a Dongshu realm cultivator of a higher realm. Moreover, he was in a middle stage of the Dongshu realm. In the face of Qin Chuan's powerful attack, the black-robed man had no intention of dodging. In his eyes, Qin Chuan's attack was like scratching an itch for him. It seemed powerful, but in fact, it wouldn't cause any harm to him. In fact, when Qin Chuan's attack fell on the black-robed man's body, it couldn't even tear the black-robed man's outer clothes. It was like a breeze, as if nothing had happened. "Is this what you're so confident about?" The black-robed man sneered. "I've already given you a chance to show off. If this is all you've got, then go to hell." As the black-robed man's voice fell, an extremely shocking pressure burst out from his body and enveloped Qin Chuan with the momentum of heaven and earth. Qin Chuan had nowhere to hide and nowhere to escape. However, in the face of the black-robed man's strong pressure, Qin Chuan didn't panic at all. Instead, a strange smile appeared on his face. Sizzle. Qin Chuan, who was in front of the black-robed man, suddenly turned into a bolt of lightning and disappeared in a flash. Thunder evasion? The black-robed man frowned when he saw this. "I can't even sense where he is." The black-robed man had long expected that Qin Chuan would use the thunder evasion to escape. However, Qin Chuan suddenly disappeared in front of him after using the thunder evasion, so he couldn't sense Qin Chuan's aura. This made him feel very puzzled. An early-stage Huashan realm cultivator was at most comparable to a cultivator in the peak stage of Huashan realm. There was no reason why he, a powerful cultivator in the middle stage of Dongshu realm, couldn't sense any aura at all. Could it be that some kind of talisman array concealed his aura? But he didn't inscribe a talisman array before. The black-robed man listened carefully and said in a low voice, "Could it be that he had already anticipated our arrival, so he set up a talisman array in advance?" The black-robed man couldn't figure out, but now wasn't the time to think about these questions. No matter how fast Qin Chuan ran, he couldn't leave this planet in a flash. As long as Qin Chuan didn't leave, he had countless ways to find Qin Chuan. Even if Qin Chuan took the opportunity to slip away, he would be intercepted by the troops he left outside. In any case, Qin Chuan was doomed. You can hide for a while, but you can't hide forever. The black-robed man snorted and ordered the people around him, "Search for him. Don't miss any details." Following the black-robed man's command, all the soldiers roared in agreement and quickly moved out. While these people were moving, In a corner of the sun of Heaven's palace, Qin Chuan was holding his breath and carefully observing every movement outside. Phew, it seems that he didn't discover me. When Qin Chuan found that the black-robed man didn't discover him, he couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. When he expected the black-robed man to come, he had already made preparations. He set up several maze arrays and illusory arrays in the emperor's palace, hoping to use them to deal with the black-robed man. However, he didn't expect that the black-robed man didn't discover the illusory arrays at all. It seems that he isn't pretending. But with his cultivation at the middle Dongshu stage, it doesn't make sense that he couldn't discover the existence of these simple level 3 and level 4 illusory arrays. Qin Chuan looked at the black-robed man with some doubts, and then his heart moved slightly. He said in a low voice, "Could it be that there's something wrong in the emperor's palace that we didn't discover before?" After thinking for a while, Qin Chuan seemed to have thought of something, and his face couldn't help but reveal a look of shock. If his guess was true, then this fact was a little too shocking. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.